Chapter 169. The decisive battle on the Cloud Tread rooftop had been going on for some time. Based on normal standards, this battle had already gone on for quite some time. This was because this was an arena battle between elite disciples, and there were elders watching over them. As long as the participants could win, they normally wouldn't hold back. During the battle, they would reveal their trump cards, and as the hare rose and the falcon descended, victory and defeat would be decided extremely quickly. In fact, in the previous 2 rounds of the fight, the winner and loser were all decided within 3 to 5 moves. The pace of the fight was compact and exciting. Often, there would be several waves of changes in a single breath, which overwhelmed the audience. Before the final match, many people regarded the semi-final match between Zhang Zai and Lu Li as the pinnacle match between the 2 sects. In that match, 10,000 methods comprehension and brilliant sword heart confronted each other, and in just a few rounds, the audience was suffocated. However, in today's decisive battle, the situation on the stage made the audience tangled. In recent years, this old man has watched a lot of fights between the younger generation, but this is the first time that I don't understand it. A sage-like, white-haired, ruddy old man gently stroked his beard, and his 2 slender white eyebrows were tangled together. This elder from Myriad Appearance sect had a profound cultivation base and a powerful primordial spirit. Since the beginning of the fight, he had been closely watching all the changes on the Cloud Tread rooftop. However, the feedback information made him unable to fathom it. Why did Wang Lu confidently take the initiative to attack? What exactly was Lu Li afraid of? Were it not for the ice-cold face of the mysterious Sky Mansion's manager who remained silent, he really would have suspected that this fight was fake. While he was puzzled, the first wave of confrontation between Wang Lu and Lu Li broke out. The amount of information that he received in an instant shocked this elder of Myriad Appearance sect. Many of the changes were still puzzling, but there was one thing that was beyond doubt: Wang Lu had actually reached the foundation establishment stage. For a deity stage cultivator, even 100 foundation establishment cultivators couldn't withstand the wrath of his primordial spirit. However, as the reward-giver elder of Myriad Appearance sect, he was well aware of how difficult it was to reach the foundation establishment stage. From Qi cultivating stage to foundation establishment stage was a big hurdle, enough to make most of the cultivators in 9 regions frustrated. Even those outstanding disciples had to spend several months in seclusion from Qi refinement to foundation establishment. They had to accumulate enough energy, and with the help of foundation establishment pills and other medicines, they could successfully break through. When the lead disciple of the Myriad Appearance School reached the foundation establishment stage, he didn't use elixirs, nor did he go into seclusion. After meditating in the training room for a day and a night, he successfully built his jade mansion and successfully reached the foundation establishment stage. He was regarded as a rare genius in 100 years by the school, and was trained with all their might. According to the rumor, Xiaofan of Xingjing sect only needed to meditate for a moment before she successfully cultivated her jade mansion, which was an incredible legend for many people in the Wuxia League. And now, a scene that was even more miraculous than the legend was happening right before his eyes. Someone had actually reached foundation establishment just before the battle. Furthermore, it was literally the foundation establishment before the battle. It was rumored that Lu Li reached the foundation establishment stage in the Blood Cloud Gorge. However, that battle lasted for several days and nights, so who knew how long it took for her to reach the foundation establishment stage? Wang Lu, on the other hand, did not stop at all. Naturally, he stepped onto the threshold of the foundation establishment stage. Like Elder Wan Xiang, all the people from the other sects were also shocked. The 5 disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect had their mouths wide open. They felt that even their primordial spirit was somewhat unable to operate. Their eldest brother Zhang Zai tightly bit his lips. His heart was filled with both alarm and anger. As the lead disciple of one of the 5 uniques of the Wuxia League, he only took a cup of tea worth of time to reach the foundation establishment stage. According to the rumor, he and Xiaofan were on the same level, both of them were at the top of the Wanxian League. However, compared to this Wang Lu who reached the foundation establishment stage while talking and laughing, what was that? Only the elders of the Lingjian school were not surprised at all. Because Wang Lu was, after all, a cultivator with void spirit root. Although the property of this spirit root was a bit of a pain in the ass in the current 9 regions, at least in breaking through the bottleneck, void spirit root had an incomparable advantage over other spirit roots. There was truly no resistance, a smooth transition. Today, he reached the foundation establishment stage, and tomorrow, he would go to work. No, he would go to work while he was at the foundation establishment stage. Of course, the sudden transition from high-level qi cultivating stage to the edge of foundation establishment stage was not a big nor small miracle. However, with the help of elixirs and the big heart demon oath, it was not difficult to understand. What really surprised them was Lu Li's blank look at the last moment. She collided head-on with Wang Lu, whose magical power and primordial spirit were at the peak of the foundation establishment stage. She only slightly injured the opponent, but she lost 3 of her flying swords. Although the explosive power of the brilliant sword heart remained the same, the agile and ever-changing feeling was completely gone. This was not a choice that a normal Lu Li would make. While people were still in doubt, the second round of collision between Wang Lu and Lu Li came. After this round of confrontation, the blank look in Lu Li's eyes disappeared, and her clear and agile temperament was once again glowing. The girl adjusted the position of the 9 flying swords and pointed her finger forward. The flying swords suddenly dispersed, forming an encirclement, and then continued to attack one after another in an exceptionally tricky manner. Wang Lu sneered. His sword of Mount Kun, which was previously calm, became as agile as the wind. The hazy figure of an elegant woman could be vaguely seen on the surface of the sword. It was the sword spirit Autumn Beam who had fully stimulated her power. Under the 3 feet sword defense, the sword of Mount Kun was like a phantom. 1 against 9, yet it didn't yield. The brilliant sword heart that once gave the 10,000 art sect cultivators a big headache couldn't break through Wang Lu's sword defense at all. However, after a series of clanking sounds, Wang Lu's expression gradually turned dignified. Strengthened by the big heart demon oath, coupled with the overflow of magical power during the foundation establishment stage. Wang Lu indeed has a perfect defense at this time. However, if Lu Li doesn't engage in close combat with him, Wang Lu's counterattack would be ineffective. In the long run, Lu Li would still have a higher chance of winning. Just as Hua Yun was trying to voice out her own judgment, she saw Wang Lu sneer. He swung his sword to deflect the 3 flying swords, and then he suddenly took a step forward. Lu Li indifferently floated backward. Her colorful dress drew an agile rainbow. In terms of agility, even 10 Wang Lu's couldn't compare to Lu Li's brilliant sword heart. However, the next moment, the girl's figure stagnated, and her eyes once again showed a vacant look. The 9 flying swords converged into one and unexpectedly launched that violent and overbearing attack again. Boom! After the second round of collision, Lu Li once again broke 3 flying swords, while Wang Lu vomited out a mouthful of blood. His injury wasn't light, but it didn't affect the overall situation. Seeing the remaining 6 flying swords in mid-air, most of the people realized that Lu Li had suffered a big loss, but why exactly was that? While they were puzzled, the girl showed a vacant look for the 3rd time. The remaining 6 flying swords converged and bombarded with full force. Boom! There were only 3 flying swords left. Wang Lu's injury worsened, but his morale had climbed to the peak. As long as this was the last blow, Lu Li's flying swords would be destroyed, and she wouldn't be able to use any of her tricks. And at this time, a certain brilliant peak master suddenly stood up. What a cunning kid! With that, Zhou Ming pointed his finger. Look at his clothes. Under Zhou Ming's guidance, Lu Xian, Fang He, and the other elders immediately saw the reason. It turned out that when Wang Lu fought against Lu Li, he occasionally shook his sleeves, and the thick ink-like darkness on the sleeves of his black robe would slightly melt, revealing densely packed characters. It was precisely when Lu Li saw those characters that her face turned blank and her lightness was no longer there. And those characters were mostly, "Idiot, you only know how to eat. Eat, 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 eat until you die. Give me 3 more hours of practice, if you don't finish, you're not allowed to eat." And so on and so forth. Words that made people scratch their heads in confusion. However, upon seeing this, the elders of the Lingjian school burst into laughter a moment later. Sure enough, he's a cunning kid. Lu Li's sword heart was clear and pure. Once she entered the fighting state, she would ignore the outside world and would not be disturbed. However, Wang Lu was exceptionally cunning in imitating her master Zhou Ming's tone and handwriting, writing a jamming suit. Lu Li could ignore everything else, but she couldn't ignore her master. On the contrary, Lu Li's clear and pure physique would actually amplify this part of the noise. Just now, in her mind, there seemed to be countless masters roaring and rebuking her, which almost made her soul fly away and scatter. If not for the more powerful suppression of fighting intent, Lu Li's primordial spirit would have already collapsed. Although this move of Wang Lu was cunning, it really hit the vital point. Hua Yun shook her head and said, "To be able to think of this move and do this step, Wang Lu has thoroughly studied little Lu Li, senior brother. This loss is not undeserved. It's all because that girl Lu Li's brilliant sword heart is not enough, otherwise, these words are meaningless. Wang Lu's non-phase method hasn't been cultivated to a high level, moreover, his magical power is still a few levels lower." Humph. Zhou Ming resentfully sat down. His face was still gloomy, but he wasn't worried at all. Wang Lu, that kid, underestimated the brilliant sword heart too much. Does he really think that by breaking Lu Li's flying sword, he can win? Hua Yun asked, "Oh, what do you mean?" "Humph, flying sword incarnation, that's the method that Lu Li just started to cultivate, so she's far from being proficient in it. Her real skill is still in close combat. When her flying sword is broken and she has to fight in close combat, Wang Lu has no chance of winning, even if he has the big heart demon oath." This was not difficult to understand. If Wang Lu was in his peak state, perhaps his non-phase sword, strengthened by the big heart demon oath, coupled with the overflow of magical power from his foundation establishment stage, would be able to confront Lu Li's brilliant sword heart head-on. However, at this time, he had suffered a serious injury, so it was impossible for his non-phase sword to maintain its peak power. Therefore, Lu Li's initial choice to use her flying sword to fight was correct. Although she was tricked by Wang Lu, her odds of winning were still higher. In the end, no one could deny that Lu Li was stronger in terms of raw power. Hua Yun said, "However, this is, after all, a very wonderful fight. Wang Lu has done better than anyone could have expected." Several senior brothers coldly humphed in unison, but no one could refute it. No one could do what Wang Lu did. Although this kid was as despicable and shameless as his master, but, he was indeed formidable, and they couldn't help but admire him. Unfortunately, he seems to be so confident that he has placed a big bet on himself. I don't know what he's going to do next. While they were talking, the situation on the field really changed. There were only 3 flying swords left in Lu Li's hand. Even if she looked dazed and her agile heart was no longer there, she instinctively clenched her sword and gave up the idea of using her flying sword to hurt the enemy. Then, the girl's figure was like the wind. The 2 swords in her hands simultaneously ignited with flames, and her swift movement was like 2 dazzling meteors. The 20th layer of fiery sword, double sword combined chop. Wang Lu's eyes suddenly changed. His left hand gently stroked the sword of Mount Kun, and then he pulled out his last card. The 4th layer of the seal on the sword of Mount Kun was broken. In a flash, the sword spirit autumn beam condensed her sword outside her body and stood next to Wang Lu. Her slender hand and Wang Lu held the sword hilt. Then, the two of them lifted the sword of Mount Kun and went straight toward Lu Li. Boom! After a deafening explosion sound, a ring of flame, fueled by the clouds, crazily rolled and spread out. The innermost layer of the cloud platform was instantly incinerated. The cloud platform, which was bound by the array, was like a flame purgatory. The power of this sword strike was enough to burn a city. In that purgatory, Lu Li continued to cough. Blood continued to flow from her mouth. She had suffered a serious internal injury. However, her two hands still tightly held the sword, and her imposing manner of a sword cultivator hadn't diminished in the slightest. On the other side, in the middle of the flame, a dazzling golden light shone. That was the magical light released by the elder to save his or her life when one side was defeated. When the golden light appeared, the outcome was decided. This fight, Lu Li won. Amidst the thunderous cheers from the audience, there were several areas that were completely silent. The disciples of Lingjian School and 10,000 Arts sect gawked at the result on the stage. They all felt that it was somewhat unbelievable. That Wang Lu actually lost? Well, although from any rational point of view, this was a reasonable result, so much so that several disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect even went all out to bet on Lu Li's victory. However, when the result came out, it was still hard to believe. Could the miracle Wang Lu not create another miracle? Speaking of which, I remember that Wang Lu, that kid, bet more than 90 million spirit stones on himself before the fight? TSK, 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 you should cherish your life and stay away from gambling. At this moment, on the rooftop, wrapped in golden light, Wang Lu had a distressed look on his face. Damn it, I still lost. Opposite him, Lu Li grinned and put away her sword. The girl's fighting intent was completely restrained, and the sharp sword intent was replaced by an innocent smile. You fought very well. I didn't expect you to be so powerful. Uncle said that people of non-phase peak are good at playing tricks, but their own cultivation base is not that good. Wang Lu wryly smiled. Your comfort is really grating. While saying that, he shook his head. Forget it, let me congratulate you on your victory first. With that, he extended his hand toward Lu Li to show his friendship. Although Lu Li was naive, she was not without etiquette. She walked over with a smile and held Wang Lu's hand. The next moment, a pink mist sprayed out from Wang Lu's palm. Lu Li swayed and then softly fell to the ground. Wang Lu reached out to hug the girl, slowly put her on the ground, and then gently pressed a mechanism on his shoulder. The golden light around his body was extinguished. On and off the stage, there was a deathly silence. Wang Lu stood on the stage for a while and coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood. His injury was very heavy and could fall at any time, but since no one spoke, he had to open his mouth. Although I'm sorry, I have to say that I've won. Chapter 170. In the 9 regions calendar year 6348, the duel on the cloud platform of Spirit Sword Mountain was destined to be recorded in the annals of history. Although the cultivation base of the two combatants was not high, only low-level foundation establishment, one of them even entered the foundation establishment stage before the duel. However, this duel revealed a truth to the countless onlookers at the scene, and even the cultivators who later learned the whole story of this duel. Just how low could a cultivator's moral integrity go? When the referee of the duel, Feng Yin Daoist Master, announced Wang Lu's victory and explained that the previous golden light was released by Wang Lu himself, the audience almost rioted. They had seen shameless people, but they had never seen such a shameless one. A peak duel of strength and wisdom, a duel that was supposed to promote the spirit of immortal cultivation and provide positive energy, was completely tarnished by Wang Lu's crafty plot at the last moment. The audience felt as if they ate a fruit and got half a worm, which couldn't be more disgusting. However, there was no doubt about the outcome of this duel. Although Wang Lu didn't have any moral integrity, he didn't violate the rules. The rules didn't say that the contestants couldn't release their own golden light to falsify the result. And Lu Li, upon seeing the golden light, relaxed her vigilance, which was her own stupidity, so she couldn't blame others. In fact, after the 20 layers of fiery sword, Lu Li's magical power was almost exhausted, unable to maintain the operation of her sword heart. Of course, compared to the seriously injured and dying Wang Lu, she still had the upper hand in terms of combat effectiveness. Unfortunately, at the last moment, the deciding factor was not the combat effectiveness. The result of the duel was recognized by the peak deity stage disciple of mysterious Sky Mansion. He wryly smiled and said that this time, the mysterious Sky Mansion was going to lose miserably. Of course, this was a lie, because, except for a few people, most of the people who bet on Lu Li were still betting on her. No one thought that Wang Lu could really win, but in the end, he still won. For such a result, the celebration banquet that Lingjian School had originally prepared had to be cancelled. Originally, they planned to make friends with the cultivators from various sects who came to watch the duel, but now, there was nothing left to do. After the duel was over, they went back to their respective sects with a disgusted feeling. And many righteous people, before they were about to leave, showed clear hostility towards Wang Lu. "Brat, if you leave the mountain in the future, don't ever let me see you, or else I'll definitely teach you a lesson." "That's right, I've seen shameless people, but I've never seen someone as shameless as you." "Humph, if I wasn't a guest, I would definitely give you a good beating to vent my anger." In this regard, the elders of Lingjian School could only smile bitterly. Although the disciples of the same school were on the same side, they couldn't speak up for the direct disciple. To be honest, most of them had complicated feelings. As for Wang Lu himself, while receiving treatment from the sect's elders, he made a decisive statement in the face of the crowd's agitation. All right, come and hit me." The warriors of justice were all stunned. You're giving up on treatment? Are you provoking us?" Wang Lu nodded. "That's right. Hit me if you can." "Fine, you're seeking your own death." Therefore, all kinds of flying swords, seals, talismans, flags, and other things covered the sky. The seventh elder who was in charge of treatment was shocked. Seeing that he was about to be swallowed by the sea of flying swords, Wang Lu stretched out his right hand. "Wait. What, you want to beg for mercy again?" "Humph, I'm afraid it's too late to beg for mercy now." Wang Lu said, "If you want to hit me, you can, but you have to pay first." "What?" Wang Lu said confidently, "There's no reason for me to waste my time and energy to satisfy your sense of justice, right? If you want to hit me, you can, but you have to pay 10,000 spiritual stones first, and then I'll fight with you in the arena." 10,000 spiritual stones. Wang Lu sneered. "This is the base price. My energy is limited in one day, and I can't play with you indefinitely. I'll only fight 10 battles a day, and the battles will start according to the order of your bids. I'll give you 10 minutes to bid. The number of slots is limited, so if you want to fight, hurry up. F***ck, don't you have any shame?" Wang Lu slapped the table. "If you're poor and have no money, just say it. F***ck, your father, bid 100,000 spiritual stones, see how I beat the sh*t out of you." Wang Lu slapped the table again. "You, Taoist Master King Pill, have the nerve to challenge me, a foundation establishment cultivator? Who's the shameless one here? I'll say in advance, the cultivation base is limited to Shudan and below, not Shudan. If you have a high cultivation base, you can pay double the price and suppress your cultivation base and primordial spirit. If you want to accept the bid, you can choose not to accept it. I'll accept the reservation here. After paying the deposit, when my cultivation base is the same as yours, I can accept the challenge at any time. F***ck, you're quite good at scheming. Wang Lu sneered. Didn't you inquire about my name before coming here? How could a lowly person like you hope to compete with the brilliance of the top student of Spirit Sword Sect? Okay, it's almost time. Is the bidding over? I'll go first. I bid 500,000 spiritual stones. Although I'm in shoot on stage, I'll suppress my cultivation base to low-level foundation establishment. I won't take advantage of you. I just want to tell you that there's still justice in the immortal cultivation world of 9 regions. A sword cultivator from the first-rank sect, Heavenly Sword Sect, loudly shouted with a righteous look, which won a burst of applause. Well said, fellow Taoist Luo-san. Us righteous cultivators should have this kind of courage. Luo-san, I support you. That's right, fellow Taoist Luo-san, today I'm short of money, so I can't compare to you, these rich cultivators. However, what you just said is right in my heart. Of your 500,000 spiritual stones, I'll support you 5,000. It's just a little bit of my strength, but I also want to promote righteousness. To raise the prestige of my righteous path. Luo-san solemnly cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, fellow Taoists, for your support. I bid a sky-high price to fight him, not to become famous, but to promote righteousness. Since ancient times, my Heavenly Sword Sect has upheld the righteous path. Since the Great War of Immortals and Demons, we've been one of the mainstays of the Righteous Path Alliance. Our sect leader, Sword 16, has reached the unity stage, and his divine sword is rarely matched. In addition, our sect takes good care of our disciples and trains them seriously. We have F***ck, advertising costs a fee. If you keep talking, you'll have to pay more." Wang Lu slammed the registration desk below the cloud platform, urging Luo-san to go up and fight as soon as possible. Luo-san looked regretful, but he didn't say anything. He went up the platform with his sword in hand, stepped on a sword light, and floated in the air. He pointed his sword at Wang Lu from above. "Come up, let me teach you the principles of being a man and cultivating immortality." Wang Lu sneered and walked up the cloud platform. A moment later. "Fellow Taoist Luo-san. Fellow Taoist Luo-san, what's wrong with you? Wake up. Wang Lu, what kind of trick did you use to injure fellow Taoist Luo-san?" Wang Lu gently wiped the sword of Mount Kun on the platform, and with a disdainful smile, he said to himself, "I've killed him. Next. Damn, Xiang Tiange of Empty Bamboo Mountain, bid 450,000 spirit stones to avenge fellow Taoist Luo-san. I'm also a shoot-on stage cultivator, and I've suppressed my cultivation to low-level foundation establishment. I don't want to take advantage of you. I want to see what kind of trick you have." Another moment passed. "Brother Xiang. Brother Xiang, what's wrong with you? Wake up. Wang Lu, what kind of trick did you use to injure Brother Xiang?" Wang Lu gently wiped the sword of Mount Kun on the platform, and with a disdainful smile, he said to himself, "Double kill, next. Next your mother. I'm Guyu of Ghost Een Mountain, King Pill Realm. Do you dare to fight me?" Wang Lu snorted. "Do you dare to pay first?" "Damn, isn't it just double? 400,000 spirit stones are here. Wait for me on the platform. According to your request, I'll suppress my cultivation to high-level foundation establishment. Let's see how you stop me." A moment passed. "Brother Guyu. Brother Guyu, what's wrong with you? Wake up. Wang Lu, what kind of trick did you use to injure Brother Guyu?" Wang Lu gently wiped the sword of Mount Kun on the platform. With a disdainful smile on his face, he said to himself, "Big kill, next." After 10 rounds, Wang Lu withdrew the sword of Mount Kun and slowly walked off the platform. The surrounding area was deathly silent. Hundreds of people involuntarily made way for him. Wang Lu smiled. My Lingjian school is hospitable. You can stay on the mountain for a few days. My rules remain the same. 10 rounds a day. The highest bidder will fight. I wish you all good luck. Watching Wang Lu leave, the hundreds of people didn't open their mouth for a long time. Just now, he had fought 10 battles in a row, and by the end of it, the people below the stage were actually scared witless. Previously, when they watched the fight between Wang Lu and Lu Li, they only saw that Wang Lu was suppressed by Lu Li to the point that he had to resort to tricks to fight. Thus, they inwardly thought, how much real ability does this kid have? They had been cultivating for many years, experienced and knowledgeable. Coupled with their superior intelligence, they could certainly break his tricks. However, when they went on the platform and fought against him, they found that the average person didn't even have the qualification to see his tricks. His real ability was enough to make them speechless. A total of 10 people, among which, there were geniuses who were regarded as the future hope of some righteous sects, as well as seniors who suppressed their cultivation base in an attempt to win with their rich experience and insight. Without exception, all of them fell under the sword of Wang Lu. Although among these 10 people, there were no geniuses from high-rank sects, there were also no weak ones. However, Wang Lu's restriction was only below Shudan stage, which meant that the opponent might have a complete stage advantage over him. But this was still not enough, far from enough. Even Daoist Master King Pil, in Foundation Establishment stage, could not penetrate Wang Lu's sword defense, nor could he resist his counterattack. As for cultivators above Yuanying stage, perhaps they could defeat Wang Lu with their Foundation Establishment stage cultivation base, but they also wanted face. Yuanying bullying Foundation Establishment stage, how could they have the nerve to do that? After 10 consecutive defeats, few people remembered Wang Lu's shamelessness. Instead, many people remembered the words of the oldest person in Kunlun sect, the immortal Wang, who was known to be able to see through the past and the present. From now on, the immortal cultivation world of 9 regions is the world of the young. When the immortal Wang said this, it just so happened that Xianghua of Xingjing sect had reached the Foundation Establishment stage through meditation, which caused a sensation in the 9 regions. People only thought that it was the goodwill of Kunlun sect to Xingjing sect, but now, it seemed like there was a hidden meaning in these words. Xianghua Fairy, Zhan Zai, Lu Li, Wang Lu. Most of these peerless geniuses of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League suddenly rose in the last 10 years, and then went far beyond the rest of the immortal cultivation world. Now, they have yet to grow up, but they have already shown their sharpness. In the future, once their cultivation base is successful, perhaps no one could stop them. The new generation excels the old. For a time, many immortal cultivation world seniors thought of this old saying. Chapter 171. After the peak showdown between Lu Li and Wang Lu, and after experiencing Wang Lu's 10 consecutive victories on the Grand Cloud platform, the spectators from all over the world left the mountain one after another. In fact, even if they wanted to stay, there was no way. Lingjian School was not a park where people could stroll around whenever they wanted. With the departure of a large number of spectators, the exchange between the 10,000 Arts sect and Lingjian School also quietly came to an end. Although according to the rules, there was still a 5-on-5 team battle between the 2 sects to compete, the interest of the cultivators of the 2 sects inevitably faded. As for this team battle, people mostly treated it as the aftertaste of the climax. Even the participating disciples didn't pay too much attention to this matter. The 10,000 Arts sect, on the other hand, slightly rubbed their fists, wanting to wash away their previous shame. However, their preparation for the match was not too active. The team fight between the 2 sects began on time 2 days later. This match actually had the ideal harmonious atmosphere of friendship first and competition second. The disciples of the 2 sects went all out, yet there wasn't much murderous aura. In this match, the 10,000 Arts sect really played their due imposing manner. The 5 disciples cooperated with each other tacitly, and their spells emerged one after another, which dazzled the spectators and made them gasp in amazement. The Lingjian school's cooperation appeared to be a bit inferior. Not long after the fight began, Wen Bao and Yu Yun were regretfully and unwillingly blasted out of the arena by Zhang Zai's annihilation thunder. During this period, although Wang Lu had the intention to rescue them, even if he had the big heart demon oath to strengthen his non-phase method, it was still beyond his ability to protect the 4 of them in front of Zhang Zai, Yi Feifei, and the others. In the middle of the fight, even Yu Xinyao had no choice but to withdraw. The Lingjian school only had Lu Li and Wang Lu, while the 10,000 Arts sect had 5 people, none of them were defeated. At this point, people thought that the 10,000 Arts sect would smoothly win and save some face. However, the result was unexpected. Because no matter what, the 10,000 Arts sect couldn't deal with the remaining 2. Not to mention Wang Lu, even Lu Li's brilliant sword heart couldn't do anything to his 3-feet sword defense. Zhang Zai and Yi Feifei had tried to bombard it with their strongest method, but it didn't budge at all. Although Lu Li wasn't good at defense, the 12 flying swords were not that easy to deal with. Not to mention, although Wang Lu couldn't protect all 4 of them, he could easily protect Lu Li with his non-phase sword qi. After being entangled for a while, the advantage of Wang Lu and Lu Li in a protracted fight was manifested. On the 10,000 Arts sect side, the most important defender, Lu Qiankai, had exhausted his talismans and could no longer protect his teammates from the brilliant sword heart. Therefore, several of his senior and junior brothers were killed one by Lu Li. Finally, Zhang Zai tried to repeat the same old trick by using the annihilation thunder to perish together with his opponent. As a result, Wang Lu enthusiastically rushed forward and tightly hugged him. The raging thunder power was completely stifled, which nearly caused Zhang Zai's Jade Mansion to collapse and his primordial spirit to collapse. The 10,000 Arts sect had nothing to say after losing both the single fight and the team fight. Thus, the several senior and junior brothers decided to endure the humiliation and return to the mountain for closed-door training. They would endure the hardships and wait for the next day to take revenge. Before leaving, the Lingjian school organized the disciples to go to the 4 divisions' peak to see them off. The 2 sides exchanged farewell words, which was a sincere and touching scene. 3 years later, no, 1 year later, I will visit you again. Zhang Zai's complexion was solemn, with an unyielding fighting spirit, trying to conceal the tension and palpitation in his heart. Lu Li, when the time comes, I will not lose to you again. The girl tilted her head with a puzzled look. But 1 year later, you will definitely lose to me again. Zhang Zai didn't expect that his innocent confession would get such a reply. He stiffened his neck and said, that's not necessarily true. Standing on the side, Wang Lu, who also saw off the guests, could not help but sigh, deeply lamenting the IQ of these good-for-nothing nerds of the 10,000 Arts sect. Senior sister Lu Li, that grandson said that the next time he comes, he wants to invite you to barbecue. The girl's eyes suddenly became clear and bright, and her smile was as bright as a flower. Okay, you're welcome to come again at any time. With that, she stretched out her pair of slender jade-like hands, tightly grasped Zhang Zai's hand, and then swung it up and down. That's a deal. Next time you come, you must invite me to eat barbecue. Zhang Zai instantly felt that his sincere heart was being twisted and stirred by 2 completely opposite feelings. One was called the happiness brought by the touch of a gentle and exquisite little hand, and the other was called the pain that seemed hopeless in this lifetime. In next to no time, his pure and childlike heart shattered into bits and pieces, as if it had suffered a severe blow that wasn't inferior to the enlightened sword heart. In addition, Xiaofan was also filled with emotion. Brother Wang, you've taught me another lesson. Little Hai, when did I sleep with you? Don't talk nonsense. Hee. Xiaofan tried hard to make himself laugh. Seriously, Since I left the Spirit Sword Mountain 5 years ago, I've been thinking, if I didn't go to the 10,000 Arts sect, but instead became Brother Wang's martial brother, what would it be like? Wang Lu frowned and took half a step back. Little Hai, to tell you the truth, your current appearance makes me a bit uncomfortable. Hai Yunfan decided to ignore Wang Lu and continued to say, because of this, I've been tangled for a long time, but now I'm relieved. Compared to being your martial brother, it's more interesting to be your opponent. Of course, I don't want to be your enemy. Opponent and enemy, these were indeed two completely different concepts. Next time we meet, I will try my best not to lose to you. After saying that, Hai Yunfan shook his head. Of course, for a loser to say such a line would only make people laugh. However, the declaration must be said. Brother Wang, I look forward to our next meeting. Wang Lu looked at Little Hai. Okay. Oh, I almost forgot, this time, I have a gift for you. Hai Yunfan handed a piece of sincerity paper to Wang Lu. It may be useful to you. Wang Lu took it and found that it was the royal seal of the Grand Cloud Empire. He couldn't help but smile. Little Hai was indeed Little Hai. When it was time to be considerate, he was especially considerate. With the royal seal of the Grand Cloud Empire, the Wisdom Sect's cross-state business would go to another level. Nowadays, Wang Lu didn't need other resources, especially spirit stones, but this royal seal, which couldn't be easily bought with money. After sending away the people of the 10,000 Arts sect, the Lingjian school once again became deserted. In this short period of half a month, a lot of things had happened. When the cloud wave boat gradually went away under the golden sunshine, many people felt heartfelt exhaustion. However, exhaustion was exhaustion, the finishing work still needed to be done. For example, the gambling settlement of a certain crazy gambler. In the duel between Wang Lu and Lu Li, he bet nearly 100 million spirit stones, which was the biggest gamble in the Blue River region in the past decades. In the end, he won more than 100 million spirit stones, which could be called incomparably rich. Such a huge amount of money was something that even the mysterious Sky Mansion couldn't come up with in a short time. Finally, the person in charge of the Blue River region personally delivered more than 100 first-rate mysterious sky crystals, which shocked countless people. According to the prior agreement, Wang Lu gave 50 of them to his master. The woman was so happy that on the spot, she announced that she would immediately marry him, which made the person in charge of the mysterious Sky Mansion extremely embarrassed. Fortunately, the woman's ambition was beaten back by the sect leader and the disciplinary elder, and only then did she let it go. The poor suddenly became rich. The fifth elder had completely lost the calmness that a Taoist master of immortal cultivation should have. She put away the 50 mysterious sky crystals and happily rode her flying sword down the mountain, saying that she wanted to carefully enjoy life. More than 10 days later, the woman in white returned to the mountain. Surprisingly, she once again lived a poor and happy life. Wang Lu was very curious about this. In just 10 days, she was able to see through the world of mortals. How could this woman's self-cultivation be so good? However, when he asked, the answer he got was like a thunderclap. I've spent all my money, so I had to come back. Spent all my money. Wang Lu couldn't help but prostrate himself in admiration. In just 10 days, she had spent tens of millions of spirit stones. However, before he could exclaim in surprise, he heard his master's gentle and creepy question, "Little Lu heir, when will our marriage be held?" Wang Lu loudly cursed, "When you pick up your moral integrity." Actually, at this time, Wang Lu was also out of money. During the days when his master went down the mountain, he had continuously transferred all of his winnings to the Wisdom sect to accelerate its development. This rapidly growing sect was currently in a state of capital hunger, so no matter how much money it was, it could be digested. Wang Lu firmly believed that when the Wisdom sect blossomed and bore fruit, his investment at this time would be several times more than before. In any case, the story of the master and disciple of the non-phase peak squandering hundreds of millions of spirit stones in just 10 days had become the glorious legend of the Spirit Sword Mountain. After that, there was the issue of the sect's lead disciple. In order to encourage the disciples to work hard, the Lingjian School's Heavenly Sword Hall, under the suggestion of Wang Lu, established the lead disciple system. And the champion of the single fight in the sect's competition would have the authority of the lead disciple for 10 years. Although there was a great controversy in the final fight, Wang Lu's victory was beyond doubt. Therefore, in the midst of the discussion, the sect leader Feng Yin Daoist Master, on behalf of all the Heavenly Sword Hall elders, conferred the title of lead disciple to Wang Lu. The conferment ceremony was held quietly outside the sect leader's bamboo room on the stellar peak. There were only a few people present. Originally, the Lingjian school intended to gather all the disciples at the 4 divisions peak to announce the candidate of the lead disciple, in order to stimulate the morale. However, who told Wang Lu, this lead disciple, to come out of nowhere, so the grand ceremony had to be hastily cancelled. For Wang Lu, the special authority of the lead disciple was far more meaningful than the grand ceremony, and he never cared what other people thought of him. After receiving the gold medal that symbolized the honor of the lead disciple from Feng Yin Daoist Master's hand, Wang Lu was ready to go down the mountain. However, he heard Feng Yin say with a smile, "He, don't you want to accompany this new master to chat?" The sect's lead disciple was only restricted by the sect leader, so in theory, he was equal to the sect leader's disciple. Since Feng Yin Daoist Master said so, Wang Lu had to stop and smiled back. "If you have something to say, please say it." Outside the bamboo room, the old man and Wang Lu sat side by side. The old man was silent for a long time and then slowly said, "It has been more than 5 years since you entered the Lingjian school. However, the scene of you overcoming all the difficulties in the immortal path is still fresh in my memory. At that time, by a freak combination of factors, I almost made a big mistake by rejecting you outside the door. Even now, I still feel scared when I think about it." Wang Lu smiled. "Is it that serious? Lingjian School is full of talented people. Senior sister Lu Li, and that senior sister Zhu Shiyao, whom I haven't seen for 5 years, are not below me. If any of the other sects could have one of them, they would be able to settle the world. In fact, it's not a big deal for Lingjian School to lack me." After a pause, Wang Lu seriously said, "On the contrary, if I didn't cultivate the non-phase method here, I would definitely not have today's achievements. I am very clear about this." Feng Yin Daoist Master's eyes revealed an incomparable gratification. "It's not easy for you to think so. However, you don't have to belittle yourself. Although little Lu Li and Yao are the first-class geniuses in 9 regions, the future of Lingjian School still depends on you." Wang Lu was silent for a moment and then said, "Sect leader, could it be that Lingjian School recently failed in its investment and needs urgent capital injection?" Feng Yin jokingly scolded, "This kid, no matter how down and out Lingjian School is, it's not as greedy for your private money. What's more, do you really think a mere few hundred mysterious sky crystals can support the operation of one of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League?" Wang Lu said, "I'm just stating my position, please continue." Feng Yin said, "In this 9 regions, every few hundred or thousands of years, there will be a glorious era where heroes come forth in large numbers. Now, with the growth of your generation of young people, I'm afraid the glorious and turbulent era is not far away. Little Lu Li and Yao are the top cultivators, but their flaws are also very serious. They can't support the sky of Lingjian School. Therefore, today, I confer the honor of the lead disciple to you. I hope that in the future, you can live up to this title and become the worthy lead disciple of Spirit Sword Sect." Wang Lu was silent for a moment and then said to the sect leader with a smile, "Rest assured, I like this mountain very much. I like this sect and the people in this sect very much." Feng Yin suddenly asked, "So, what about your master? Wang Lu was stunned for a moment and then somewhat embarrassedly said, "Well, if one day, she and my mother fall into the river together, I can consider saving my mother first, and then hit her with a brick." This time, it was the sect leader's turn to fall into silence. After a long time, the old man sighed with emotion. In her life, she seems to be free and easy, but in fact, she's lonely. You better take care of yourself. Chapter 172. The time of the immortal cultivation was not short. Since the competition between the two sects, 5 years seemed to have slipped away in the blink of an eye. In the past 5 years, the Lingjian school had returned to its former tranquil and contented rhythm. The disciples cultivated, studied, and lived step by step. The elders, from time to time, went out to wander, sometimes went into seclusion on the mountain, and sometimes solved the doubts of the disciples. In the past 5 years, the disciples who had high hopes began to gradually grow up. Yu Yun, Yu Xiniao, Wen Bao, Zhu Qin, one after another, they successfully reached the foundation establishment stage. The side effects of the intensive cultivation before the competition between the two sects had also been offset, and the disciples had taken a solid step forward on the immortal cultivation path. As for Wang Lu, that would be another level of existence. As the lead disciple of the Lingjian school, Wang Lu's 5 years of cultivation experience was enough to make most of the Spirit Sword sect's disciples envious. The resources that the sect had invested in him were several times more than that of the average disciple. He was indeed in line with the position of the lead disciple of the sect, which gathered the entire sect's power to train him. The reason why Wang Lu didn't hesitate to get the lead disciple treatment, in addition to suppressing his unreliable master, was so that he could walk a bit faster on the immortal cultivation path. Of course, it was not because of a sense of crisis. Although he had a conversation with the sect leader 5 years ago on the stellar peak, which vaguely revealed that there might be a big change in the near future, for a deity stage cultivator, the concept of near was likely to refer to 100 or 200 years or even longer, far from the time to worry about it. Wang Lu's eagerness to cultivate was mostly due to his love of cultivation. He liked cultivation, liked non-phase method, liked the process of perfecting his jade mansion, quenching his primordial spirit, and solidifying his sword bone. He incomparably enjoyed the feeling of being stronger than the day before. His void spirit root and non-phase method were far from perfect. In the process of cultivation, he would always encounter various obstacles. Some of them could be taken shortcuts, while others could only be solved with time, energy, and resources. At this time, it was naturally unreliable to count on the impoverished non-phase peak, and the privilege of the lead disciple could play a great role. A qualified adventurer was bound to be a leveling maniac. After 5 years of crazy leveling, he had smoothly entered the middle level of the foundation establishment realm. At this point, Wang Lu had been cultivating for 10 years. Reaching the middle level of the foundation establishment realm in 10 years was considered quite fast among the geniuses of the Wanxian League. Not to mention that he also had the Great Heart Demon Oath to strengthen his non-phase method system. His comprehensive strength had become the top level among the younger generation. However, to say that they could leave all of their peers behind was not necessarily true. In the past 5 years, everyone had been making progress, such as the disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect who had been patiently waiting for revenge. Among them, the eldest brother Zhan Zai entered the high-level foundation establishment stage a year after he returned to the immortal sect. His progress was incredibly fast. After the promotion, he returned to the Spirit Sword Mountain as promised and paid a visit. Then, sure enough, he was once again defeated by the hands of Lu Li. Because Lu Li had also made amazing progress in this 1 year, the gap between her and Zhan Zai had widened a bit, which almost made Zhan Zai desperate. In the past year, he went deep into the sect's experiential learning place and experienced all kinds of hardships to have this kind of progress. However, unexpectedly, he still couldn't keep up with the footsteps of the other party. Zhang Zai's dispirited back caused the elders of the Lingjian school to sigh with emotion. Zhang Zai, Lu Li, Wang Lu. This group of peerless geniuses that made many cultivators sigh with emotion, each had their own lucky chance, but without exception, they were particularly persistent in immortal cultivation. Zhang Zai might have done a lot of things in the past year, but how could Lu Li be lazy? In the past year, Lu Li had fought at least 100 battles and was seriously injured dozens of times. Several times, her jade mansion was shaken and her primordial spirit cracked, which nearly led to a catastrophe. How could there be no progress in such desperate struggle? As for the person who fought with Lu Li for more than 100 times, which contributed to her rapid progress, could there be anyone else? In the past 5 years, another reason why Wang Lu desperately cultivated was because of Lu Li. Since the decisive battle on the Cloud Tread rooftop, Lu Li had been pestering him. For a girl with a simple temperament, the defeat on the Cloud Tread rooftop didn't make her resentful. On the contrary, Wang Lu's mystical swordsmanship deeply attracted her, causing her to be intoxicated. Since her brilliant sword heart was completed, there had never been a cultivator with similar cultivation base to her who could block her flying sword head-on. And the way Lu Li expressed her favorable impression of him was to fight with her sword from time to time. Every time, she would fight until the sky turned dark. Even if she was seriously injured, she would never get tired of it. In this regard, Wang Lu didn't refuse. Whether it was non-phase method or brilliant sword heart, both belonged to the category of methods that could be used in battle to nurture battle. Every time in actual combat, it could be of great help. Moreover, the more the fight, the more different the style of the opponent, the greater the benefit. The effect of simply cultivating in seclusion was not that obvious. However, whether it was brilliant sword heart or non-phase method, there was no lack of change. The same opponent could bring a completely different fighting experience. In the past 5 years, the two of them fought nearly 1,000 battles, and almost every battle was different. With so many battles, naturally, it was impossible for him to win all of them. Wang Lu roughly calculated that the odds of winning against Lu Li was about 50-50. In the first 2 years, he lost more than he won. Later on, in the last 3 years, he gradually recovered. However, it was still not too much of an advantage. Of course, compared to 5 years ago, when he exhausted all his means, he was still unable to defeat Lu Li fair and square. 5 years later, he was able to fight evenly with Lu Li, or even slightly better than her, which was already an extremely rare progress. If according to Wang Lu's popularized set of weighted value algorithm, his current comprehensive strength was about level 6 foundation establishment plus 20, while Lu Li was level 2 foundation establishment plus 16, which was almost equal to peak Shudon stage Xiaoming. If the two people's attack and defense were calculated separately, the highest could even reach more than plus 25, entering the level of King Pill. In the past 5 years, Wang Lu and Lu Li, in addition to their cultivation base gains, they also had a friendship that was forged through nearly 1,000 battles. 5 years ago, the two successor disciples were just nodding acquaintances, but 5 years later, they have become good friends. In Wang Lu's words, Lu Li was mankind's best friend. On this day, Wang Lu had just finished his breakfast and cleaned up the tableware when he heard the lively and cheerful voice of a girl full of vitality coming from outside the house. Wang Lu, I'm here to play with you." Then a colorful cloud flashed before his eyes, and Lu Li was already standing in front of him, smiling like a flower. Wang Lu looked at the girl and nodded. "Sit down." Lu Li immediately sat at the table with a straight posture. "Stretch out your hand." The girl stretched out her slender jade-like hand. "Good girl." Then Wang Lu touched her small head, took out a few pieces of candy from his pocket, and put them in her hand. "Eat it." Hee. Lu Li smiled charmingly, put the candy into her mouth, and then vaguely said, "Do you want to fight?" "Damn, still want to fight?" Didn't we just fight yesterday? However, Lu Li unexpectedly uttered out a philosophical sentence. Yesterday we had a meal, today we still have to eat. Young girl, don't be too demanding. Wang Lu snappily flicked her forehead. In the next few days, I probably won't be able to fight, so I'm going to go on a long trip. Lu Li nodded and said as if it was a matter of course we're going to fight outside the house. Master said that we absolutely can't fight inside the house. Otherwise, if we break something, I won't be able to eat dinner. Going on a long trip and going out are two different concepts. After knowing each other for 5 years, Wang Lu had a very high tolerance for Lu Li's IQ. He patiently explained, I'm going to go down the mountain to Cloud region, which will take about 10 days to half a month. During this period, I can't accompany you to fight. Lu Li was surprised. You want to go down the mountain? I'll be lonely. Then find a cucumber by yourself. Wang Lu helplessly shook his head. I don't intend to go, but unfortunately, I can't disobey Master's order. Lu Li asked, I remember you said that you're now the lead disciple, under one person but above tens of thousands of people. Your idiot Master's words have no binding force on you at all. The problem is, this time, she persuaded the sect leader, so I can't do anything about it. Wang Lu shrugged. That slut said that I, as the lead disciple of the sect, have been staying on the mountain for too long, wasting the honor of being the lead disciple. Now that I've been cultivating for 10 years, it's time for me to go down the mountain to wander the world and boost the sect's influence. That's simply absurd. If she really wants to improve the sect's influence, wouldn't it be better for her to run around naked in front of Xingjing sect's gate? This is clearly a retaliation. Lu Li curiously asked, retaliation? Why? Wang Lu frowned. Because she reported to the sect leader that she tried to steal the sect's assets? Refused to be a guarantor for the loan? Asked Aya to cook dinner for her? There are too many reasons, it's hard to choose. In short, because of her, I can't accompany you to play on the mountain for the next few days. Oh. The girl listlessly drooped her head, looking pitiful. But Wang Lu had a second thought. I can take you down the mountain together. Down the mountain together? Is that really okay? Lu Li's eyes immediately lit up. There are a lot of fun things down the mountain. Unfortunately, my master has been blocking me from going. Wang Lu said, nonsense, with your IQ, no one would be at ease to let you go down the mountain alone. 8 years ago, when the sect organized the disciples to go down the mountain for experiential learning, Lu Li ate and played. Along the way, she ran into trouble all the way to the Blood Cloud Gorge, and even killed the 12 Blood Cloud demons. This experience sounded awe-inspiring and domineering, but her master, the master of Brilliant Peak, was nearly scared to death. However, if she was with him, there shouldn't be any problem. In the past 5 years, Lu Li had been trained by him to be as obedient as Huahua, and his fourth uncle was also particularly open-minded, allowing his precious disciple to be his pet to tease. But then again, in the past 5 years, with Wang Lu watching over her, the number of times Lu Li ran into trouble was indeed a lot less. And this time, Wang Lu was ordered to go down the mountain. If he was alone, it would indeed be boring. Among his good friends, Yu Xinyao, Wan Bao, and the others, their cultivation base had been pulled apart. Only Lu Li, who not only had similar strength, but also complemented each other in offense and defense. Moreover, they also had a tacit understanding from 5 years of fighting, which could be called a perfect combination. When Wang Lu asked Zhou Ming about this matter, Zhou Ming very happily nodded. Okay, actually, I have long wanted to arrange her to go down the mountain for experiential learning. If you go with her, I can rest assured. This child is pure in mind and doesn't know the sinister side of the world. She needs a sinister person to teach her. You are willing to help her, so I should thank you. Thank you, uncle, for your praise. Then I will accept this coolly without any politeness. After leaving the brilliant peak, Wang Lu went back to the non-phase peak to call Luli, led the mottled dog, and embarked on the journey to Cloud Region. Chapter 173. Luli, let me ask you, what are we going to do down the mountain this time? Eat, drink, and be merry. Guess again? Eat all over the 9 regions? Continue to guess. Are all my guesses wrong? Nonsense, of course not. In the face of Wang Lu's roar, Luli innocently blinked her eyes. How could this be? We clearly said it's to eat, drink, and be merry. Wang Lu unceremoniously reached out and knocked the girl's head, ignoring the fact that Luli entered the sect earlier than him and was essentially his senior sister. Before we went down the mountain, I actually said it once, and now I repeat it for the second time. Listen, we have 3 things to do when we go down the mountain. The first is to send a letter to my master. She has a good friend in the Grand Cloud Mountain of Cloud Region, and I want to give this letter to her. The second is to record what we see and hear along the way to increase our experience, broaden our horizons, and quench our primordial spirit and immortal heart. The third is to find a way to pick a fight, collect prestige, and open the sect's title as soon as possible. Then along the way, we can eat, drink, and be merry, living a free and unrestrained life. But you only remember the last sentence. Luli pursed her mouth. The first part is too complicated, I don't understand it at all. Forget it, just remember one thing. Whatever I tell you to do, do it. Oh. Seeing that Luli was no longer making a fuss, Wang Lu sighed with emotion that after 5 years, Luli was still the same as before. He took out a bag of marinated beef cubes from his mustard seed bag and threw it to the girl as a reward for being obedient. Luli giggled, opened the paper bag, and began to eat non-stop, which made the mottled dog endlessly envious. They were both humans' best friends, but this disparity in treatment was really heartbreaking. Luli was even more proud of herself. She swaggeringly licked the minced meat and salt on her fingers. Her scallion-like fingers were immediately stained with a layer of crystal. Her expression of enjoying the delicious food made the stupid dog salivate uncontrollably. However, after eating half of the bag, Luli carefully put away the beef cubes, no longer greedy. Seeing this, Wang Lu curiously asked, "Why don't you eat it?" Luli very seriously replied, "If I eat it now, I won't be able to eat it later." Wang Lu was amused. What kind of logic is that? Why can't I eat it in the future? Master said, when the disciples of Spirit Sword sect go down the mountain for experiential learning, they must seriously experience the sufferings of the world of mortals, they must not covet extravagance. In any case, the last time I went down the mountain, I was always hungry, and the spirit stones and silver that Master gave me were all spent in no time. How many spirit stones and silver did Martial Uncle give you? Fortunately, Luli wasn't stupid enough to count with her fingers. She quickly replied, 5,000 taels of silver, 300 spirit stones. Objectively speaking, Zhou Ming wasn't stingy. With Luli's peak chi refining stage cultivation base at that time, she didn't need to spend that much. 5,000 silvers and 300 spirit stones were enough to support her life for several years. However, it was the first time that Luli went down the mountain, so she didn't know about moderation, nor did she understand the price of goods. In a bustling capital city's imperial banquet restaurant, she ate all kinds of delicacies. In just a few days, her traveling expenses were completely exhausted, and she had no choice but to swallow her saliva and dejectedly leave. In the following year, she really experienced a lot of hardships. Listening to Luli reminiscing about the bitterness and thinking about the sweetness, and how she treasured a bag of beef cubes, Wang Lu could see that this child had really suffered a lot the last time she went down the mountain. She already had a psychological shadow in her heart when she went down the mountain for experiential learning. He couldn't help but laugh and pat the girl's head. "This time, since you're going down the mountain with me, you don't need to worry too much. Marshall uncle entrusted you to me, not to let you starve here." Lu Li was actually puzzled. This time, when she went down the mountain, the traveling expenses that her master gave her were not as much as the last time. And Wang Lu. Nanfei's Peak has always been famous for its poverty. However, while the girl was still confused, she suddenly saw a silvery light coming from the horizon, and its target was exactly her and Wang Lu. At this time, they had just left the boundary of the Spirit Sword Mountain, but they didn't know who would come looking for them. Lu Li's eyes turned and immediately swept a glance at that rapid and hazy silvery light. It was actually something that was recorded in the Ten Cloud Hall's Book of Strange Objects. Cloud Wave Boat was a commonly used flying vehicle by cultivators nowadays. Its speed was extremely fast, and the flying process was smooth and comfortable, thus it was quite popular. However, this silver flying boat was 100 times more luxurious than the one in the textbook. Even Lu Li knew how precious the layer of refined silver cloud on its surface was. Moreover, its flying speed was faster and smoother than what was recorded in the textbook. The girl's sword heart sensed that the flying boat was not hostile, so she withdrew her gaze and ignored it. No matter how good the flying boat was, in any case, it couldn't be used as an entrance. However, a moment later, the flying boat descended from the sky and stopped in front of the two of them. From the silver boat, a white-clothed cultivator slowly walked out and respectfully saluted in front of Wang Lu. "Greetings, Mr. Director." Wang Lu smiled. "Old Yi, long time no see, your cultivation has improved a lot." The one who came down from the flying boat was the Wisdom Sect's Vice Sect Leader, Intelligence Revenue Services Deputy Director, Yi Chuchen. It had been nearly 8 years since Wang Lu annexed the Seven Stars Sect with the Wisdom Sect's Sect Leader. At that time, the Seven Stars Sect Leader had completely adapted to the Vice Sect Leader's identity. Now that he thought about it, Yi Chuchen's heart was filled with endless gratitude when he was defeated by Wang Lu and then incorporated into the sect. If not for Wang Lu, he would just be a low-level loose cultivator. Now, although the Wisdom Sect was still the most junior sect in the Wanxian League, his identity and status had undergone earth-shaking changes. And as a cultivator, he had gained too many benefits. First, when Wang Lu perfected the cultivation method for him, the bottleneck that had shackled him for many years suddenly disappeared. Second, as the Wisdom Sect's Vice Sect Leader, he had countless privileges. With a large number of resources, it would be difficult for his cultivation not to advance by leaps and bounds. After a few years, although his cultivation level had only advanced by 1 level, for a person with mediocre aptitude like him, advancing another level in the Shudan stage was more than just a step further. Moreover, his comprehensive strength had doubled. When they first met, as the Seven Stars Sect Leader, Yi Chuchen was just a level 9 Shudan -3 dregs. But now, he was an 8th level Shudan Xiaoming, which was equivalent to advancing by 4 levels in 8 years, advancing by leaps and bounds. If he didn't have to deal with the sect's affairs, which involved a lot of energy, his achievement could be even higher. All of this, of course, was thanks to Wang Lu. Therefore, Yi Chuchen had long been loyal and devoted to Wang Lu, even if in recent years, Wang Lu had been concentrating on cultivating in the Spirit Sword Mountain and had increasingly let go of the sect's affairs. "Mr. Director, as soon as I received your instruction, I immediately came here. Moreover, according to your instruction, I brought you this custom-made Cloud Wave boat, Cloud Wave 2000. With that, Yi Chuchen chanted an incantation. That 30 feet long, completely black flying boat opened an entrance, revealing the inside of the boat. Looking from the entrance, the inside was unexpectedly vast, far more spacious than it looked. Lu Li's eyes immediately widened, thinking that this was completely different from what was written in the book. The book said that the Cloud Wave boat was easy to use and had a high performance-to-price ratio. However, the flying space was narrow, and the cultivators were often extremely uncomfortable. But now, it seemed like that was completely wrong. Seeing Lu Li's puzzled expression, Wang Lu smiled and explained, "This is the local tyrant version of the cloud wave boat that I asked my men to go to the mysterious Sky Mansion's overseas Chinese crafts hall to customize. Inside the boat, there is a separate immortal cave, which has all the necessary tools. Come on, let's go inside first." Upon entering the flying boat, the girl's heart was even more shocked. It turned out that the inside of the boat was not only the hall that she could see from the entrance. Along the edge of the hall, there were also stairs leading to the top and bottom. Who knew how many rooms were hidden inside? In the girl's incomparable astonishment, Yi Chuchen once again chanted the incantation to close the entrance. The flying boat soared into the air, but the inside of the boat was stable without a trace of shaking. After starting the flying boat, Yi Chuchen said to Wang Lu, "Unfortunately, the craftsmen of the third rank and above in the Heavenly Crafts Hall are not here. Therefore, the immortal cave inside the boat can only be done to this extent. You said that the landscape, grass, and trees, as well as the singing and dancing puppets can't be realized. This subordinate is incompetent, please forgive me, Mr. Director." Wang Lu went straight to the lounge chair in the hall and then waved his hand. "No problem. To be able to do this in just 10 days is already not bad. After all, we're not supreme customers, so we haven't spent enough points. Later on, if there's an opportunity, we'll just make do with it." With that, Wang Lu looked at Lu Li, who was curiously exploring around the boat, and then said with a smile, "Old Yi, take out the prepared dishes." "Yes." Before long, a table of luxurious dishes was served. Lu Li, who was crazily running upstairs and downstairs, was immediately attracted. She incredulously looked at the dishes in the hall. Heavenly fragrant rain dew, vermilion jade 5 flowers, emerald cabbage, mysterious ice cheese. Previously in the Imperial Feast restaurant, Lu Li had never seen such luxurious dishes. Was this real? Even with her brilliant sword heart's clear temperament, she still couldn't extricate herself from this incomparable shock. In just a moment of daze, Lu Li couldn't help but continuously swallow her saliva. Wang Lu laughed. "What are you staring at? This is for you to eat." Really? Wang Lu picked up a piece of fat and tender lamb chop and threw it to the stupid dog, which then swallowed it in one bite. "If you don't want to eat, there's no more." I want to eat." Before long, a table of dishes that could feed more than 10 people was cleaned up by Wang Lu and his 2 best friends. With Lu Li's clear and transparent physique, it was very difficult for her to feel full. However, at this time, after eating a table of dishes, she couldn't help but feel satisfied. "Old Yi, since you've eaten and drank to your heart's content, you can start the program now." "Yes." Then, she heard the sound of bamboo flute in spirals in the hall. Wang Lu leaned back on the recliner, slightly rocking back and forth in satisfaction. Lu Li couldn't help but be curious. "Wang Lu, this flying boat, is it you who bought it?" "Yes." "How much is this going to cost?" Even with Lu Li's naivety, she also knew that such a luxurious flying boat must have a sky-high price. At least, just the table of dishes alone would cost tens of thousands of silver coins, or hundreds of spirit stones. Wang Lu smiled. "Preferential price, 800,000 spirit stones." 800,000. Lu Li incredulously repeated the number. "Good, so rich." Wang Lu laughed. "Public expense to buy an official car, of course I have money." "Public expense?" "Yes, didn't I tell you? I have my own business down the mountain, a sect." Wang Lu nodded and then earnestly said, "Although Wisdom Sect is founded by me, a qualified manager must clearly distinguish between public and private accounts. The money that should be spent by the public can't be spent on private accounts. Huh. Luli felt that there was something wrong with Wang Lu's self-righteous explanation, but she couldn't point it out. After gawking for a moment, Luli blankly said, "But," Master said, "to go down the mountain for experiential learning, we must be diligent and thrifty." Wang Lu waved his hand to interrupt her. What a joke! I, the dignified leader of Wisdom Sect, every word and deed represents the face of tens of thousands of people. If I am diligent and thrifty, it would only make people look down on Wisdom Sect. With that, Wang Lu confidently lied down. Little Luli, learn well, this is called leader treatment. Chapter 174. The Cloud Wave boat went all the way to the northwest, flying toward the cloud region. This flying boat soared high in the sky and could travel tens of thousands of miles a day. Even with the vastness of the 9 regions, it only needed 1 or 2 days to fly out of the Blue River region and enter the neighboring cloud region. Regarding this, Luli was full of amazement and embarrassment. Because before she went down the mountain, her master had seriously warned her that on this experiential learning trip to the cloud region, she must observe and remember a lot along the way. The last experiential learning trip had completely turned into a gourmet trip, so this time, she must not mess around like that. With their speed, it would take them at least 10 days to reach the cloud region, and along the way, they must carefully observe and think. However, looking at the white clouds outside the flying boat, as well as the clear sky, Luli's simple mind couldn't help but doubt. If they flew like this, they would arrive at the cloud region in less than 2 days, so should they remember these things along the way? However, since her master had requested it, she could only remember it. Although Luli was naive and ignorant of worldly affairs, her memory was excellent. She stood at the edge of the hall, looking at the waterfall-like receding clouds outside the window. Her mind had already memorized all the scene in front of her. She even automatically imagined the tumbling clouds into their respective images. For example, some were like oval-shaped barbecue, some were like square barbecue, some were like dripping oil barbecue, and, the girl earnestly memorized them. She was ready to go back and seriously tell her master about the result of her memory. She believed that the old man would certainly be happy. As for Wang Lu and Yi Chuchen, at this time, they were sitting around a tea table in the hall, listening to Yi Chuchen's report on the work of the past few years. In the past few years when Wang Lu was cultivating on the mountain, the summary of the Wisdom Sect's work would be sent to the non-phase peak every 10 days. Therefore, he had a general understanding of the situation. However, some of the important details needed to be supplemented by Yi Chuchen verbally. In general, the development of the Wisdom Sect had entered a good upward track. Even without Wang Lu's hands-on support, the Wisdom Sect still had a foundation for its own development. Currently, the number of Wisdom Sect's followers, broadly counted, had exceeded tens of millions of people, and the Great Ming country, as the foundation of the Wisdom Sect, was managed like an iron bucket. Yi Chuchen, Li Nana, and Daoist Ming Yun, these 3 giants, in the Great Ming country, their prestige was not inferior to the Prime Minister. The sect's mobilization and organization ability could be said to be against the heaven. With the combined power of tens of thousands of people, plus the huge investment from Wang Lu 5 years ago, the Wisdom Sect's infrastructure has achieved great achievements. The output of low-grade spirit objects and spirit plants was so large that even the mysterious Sky Mansion paid attention to it. Before the end of the year, they signed an agreement to establish a long-term cooperative relationship. However, just by relying on these basic constructions, the annual income that the Wisdom Sect could obtain had already made people who knew the inside story dumbfounded. If it was simply to amass money, at this time, the Wisdom Sect had already entered the harvesting period. Wang Lu's amazing investment in the past would, at most, return it in 10 years. And if they carried out some simple capital operations, the earnings would be even more amazing. However, Wang Lu's ambition was not limited to this. Because spirit stones gradually lost their value when they reached the top. Tens of thousands of spirit stones might be able to buy a Taoist master of King Pill as a thug, but even with 1 million spirit stones, it was still difficult to invite a Taoist master of Yuanying stage to come forward. In the mysterious Sky Mansion, they could show their VIP status and buy an 8th-rank spiritual treasure with hundreds of thousands of spirit stones. However, higher-rank spiritual treasures were priceless. And Wang Lu's solution was very simple: to upgrade the industry, and in the future, to be self-sufficient. To achieve this grand blueprint, the biggest problem was the lack of talent. Currently, the Wisdom sect had tens of millions of followers, but the several vice sect leaders were only Shudan stage cultivators. Moreover, among Shudan stage cultivators, they were not considered strong. Although they spent money to hire several King Pill level thugs, overall, they were still far from a mature sect. What to do? Very simple: throw money. Right now, the Wisdom sect was lacking in everything, but not in money. Although it was very difficult to attract those famous people with genuine talent by relying on spirit stones alone, if those famous people didn't come, a few broken cultivators who couldn't stay in the big sects would still be better than a loose cultivator like Yi Chuchen. Wang Lu asked the Wisdom sect to spend a lot of money to attract talented people and provide them with extremely luxurious welfare. This strategy had been implemented for more than half a year, and it had really attracted a lot of people from the big sects who, although they were not in their eyes, were incomparably precious to the Wisdom sect, which played a great role in promoting the Wisdom sect. And as the leader of the Wisdom sect, Wang Lu naturally enjoyed the due leadership treatment. In fact, if the leader didn't take the lead, it would instead make the onlookers doubt your strength. And Wang Lu wanted to use this Lingyun 2000 to show the world, Wisdom sect is rich and overbearing, full of confidence. Recruiting talented people, welcome to join. After handing over the sect's work to Yi Chuchen, only half a day had passed, but this Shudan stage vice sect leader already felt physically and mentally exhausted. Reporting work and listening to instructions in front of Wang Lu was indeed a bit stressful. Although the young man in front of him was a stage lower than him, Yi Chuchen was very clear about the gap in strength between the two of them. 8 years ago, when Wang Lu was still in the Qi cultivating stage, he was already able to use his non-phase sword to contend against the 7 stars sword art that he was so proud of. But now, after 8 years, he was afraid that he didn't even have the qualification to make a move against him. With that stupid model dog, he was not his opponent. Moreover, although Wang Lu's tone was calm, his words were always accurate. Yi Chuchen's mistakes in the past few years were easily picked out by him. Although he didn't criticize him, it still made him break out in cold sweat. Fortunately, the unbearable time was finally over. Yi Chuchen sighed in relief, smiled, and introduced the local conditions and customs of the Cloud region to Wang Lu. The Cloud region was located in the northwest of the Blue River region. As an important part of the 9 regions, it had a vast territory, rich resources, and so on. Needless to say, its biggest characteristic was chaos. Unlike the Blue River region and the other regions that were suppressed by the 5 unique of the Wanxian League, the Cloud region never had a particularly powerful deterrent force, not even the Wanxiang sect or the Flowing Cloud sect. The land of the region was divided by dozens of 3rd and 4th rank sects, such as the White Dragon Temple and Merciful Cloud Mountain. To put it nicely, it was like 100 flowers blooming, but to put it bluntly, it was like a warlord separatist rule. However, this situation also had its advantages and disadvantages. The advantage was that the situation was chaotic, which was beneficial for sects like the Wisdom sect to fish in troubled waters. The disadvantage was that if they were not careful, they would capsize. The strength of the Wisdom sect was still not comparable to those 3rd and 4th rank sections. Therefore, several days ago, Wang Lu sent a letter to Yi Chuchen, asking him to prepare the Cloud Wave boat and go to the Cloud region together. This made Yi Chuchen very curious. What exactly did the director want to do in the cloud region this time? It's nothing much. I'm just delivering a letter for Master, Wang Lu said lightly. Yi Chuchen was a little surprised and annoyed. Can't you just leave the messy task of delivering the letter to the people of SF Express? Why do you need the Ministry of Labor to come here? Wang Lu chuckled. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. However, when the cultivators of White Dragon Temple were entrusted to go to the Beast Master School's branch to demand an explanation, they were humiliated and abused. Later, it escalated into a violent conflict, and the contradiction began to intensify. Fortunately, later, under the mediation of the Wuxia League, the situation didn't further escalate. The Beast Master School's branch leader came forward to apologize, and White Dragon Temple and the Grand Cloud Empire reluctantly accepted it. But the root problem is not solved. I think this peace won't last long. The root problem? Yi Chuchen shook his head and said with a disgusted face, the Beast Master School who came here to establish a branch is a relatively radical and extreme sect. Their three views are completely different from ordinary people, but they are also self-righteous and extreme, never allowing any opposition. What do you mean specifically? Yi Chuchen said, Mr. Director, you also know that the cultivators of the Beast Master School often associate with spirit birds and spirit beasts and form a deep relationship with them, so. Wang Lu's mind turned, and he roughly guessed the cause of the matter. He couldn't help but sneer. Interesting, this time, the opponent is a small animal rights organization? Speaking to this, Wang Lu turned his head, looked at the mottled dog on the ground, and then looked at Lu Li, who was standing by the window looking at the clouds. Damn, you guys actually met your family. Chapter 175. What happened to the Beast Master School on the Grand Cloud Mountain was not surprising. There were thousands of sects in the Wuxia League, and most of them inevitably had to deal with mortals. There were only a few sects like Kunlun Immortal Sect that didn't eat the common people's food. And as long as they had dealings, conflicts were inevitable, so it was not unusual. In addition, the sects in the Wuxia League were not few in number. The Beast Master School, which liked to associate with spirit beasts, was relatively mild. After all, the whole conflict was limited to injuring a few people, which damaged the face of the Grand Cloud Empire's imperial family in White Dragon Temple. If they were to encounter those truly extreme sects, they would directly tie a few low-level disciples to themselves with lava essence, exploding runes, and other such things, and then launch a suicide attack while shouting nonsense. That would be the most splendid scene. The only thing that could arouse Wang Lu's interest was the Beast Master School. As a third-rank sect, although it was at the bottom of the high-rank sects, it was still a high-rank sect. White Dragon Temple, Merciful Cloud Mountain, and the others were sects that had been around for thousands of years in the Grand Cloud Empire, but they were only fourth-rank sects, which belonged to the middle-rank sections. This gap was very important to Wang Lu, because the efficiency of using high-rank sects to increase his reputation was not something that middle-rank sects could compare to. And according to the newly issued additional rule regarding the lead disciple in the Lingjian school, in addition to the title of lead disciple, if a disciple did something that boosted the sect's reputation, they would get corresponding points according to the impact and other factors. And by using these points, they could obtain a variety of sect titles granted by the Heavenly Sword Hall. After all, the number of lead disciple was limited, which was not conducive to stimulating the overall enthusiasm of the sect. However, there was no limit on the title, which could let 100 flowers bloom. And the sect title was not only an honor, but also a substantial reward. The Heavenly Sword Hall would, according to the characteristics of the title, forge the corresponding level equipment for the disciple, and how could the Heavenly Sword Hall's products be ordinary? High-rank magical treasures were not rare, and even spiritual treasures could be tailored. For the wisdom sect's leader with a net worth of hundreds of millions of spirit stones, spiritual treasures might not be too rare, but tailor-made spiritual treasures were not common. 800,000 spirit stones might be able to buy an 8th-rank spiritual treasure, but if he wanted to buy one that was as good as the sword of Mount Kun, even if Wang Lu invested 8 million spirit stones, it would still be difficult. This time, when he descended the mountain, he would grind up his reputation, unlock his title, and exchange for treasures. These were the most important things. According to the school's point system, if Wang Lu was able to flatten this beast-taming school's division, he would be able to earn more points than if he were to challenge the White Dragon Temple and Merciful Cloud Mountain. Of course, with Wang Lu's current ability, going to find a group of people founded by Taoist King Pil was no different from seeking his own death. Although the beast-taming school's reputation wasn't good, it wasn't evil. Going to cause trouble for them without rhyme or reason was unreasonable. Wang Lu pondered for a moment and decided to put this matter in his mind for the time being. While thinking, Yi Chuchen eagerly asked, "Mr. Director, could it be that the Spirit Sword Immortals and the beast-taming school have some kind of friendship with each other?" Wang Lu frowned. "No, we don't have any kind of friendship with anyone, we're just a lone wolf." Yi Chuchen hesitated. Should he praise the Lingjian school for being noble and virtuous, or should he join the director in ridiculing the sect? The scale was really hard to grasp. After thinking about it, the vice-sect leader decided to change the topic. "Then I wonder who is Mr. Director going to send the letter to?" Although the Wisdom sect hasn't opened up their territory in the Grand Cloud Empire, it's still convenient to inquire about some information. Wang Lu looked at the letter in his hand and said, "I haven't seen that person before. I only heard a few words from my master. However, from the name, it should be a bald man." Zen? Yi Chuchen felt strange. There are not many Zen cultivators in the Grand Cloud Empire. There's not even a Zen sect in the vicinity of the Grand Cloud Mountain. Could it be a loose cultivator? But it doesn't matter. Can you tell me the name of that master? Perhaps I know it. Go Ruo. Yi Chuchen froze for a long time and then softly asked, "What? Have you heard of Zen Master Go Ruo?" This subordinate is ignorant and inexperienced, so I really haven't heard of it. However, I can mobilize the Wisdom Sect's disciples, or ask the Wanxian League-related organization in the Grand Cloud Empire. Before he could finish, Wang Lu coldly glanced at him as if he was looking at an idiot. This time, find a city near the Grand Cloud Mountain and stop there. After that, you don't need to care about it, and you don't need to inquire about the information. Yi Chuchen was startled, and then he secretly scolded himself for being muddle-headed. Wang Lu was very likely to find trouble with the third-rank beast-taming school. If the Wisdom sect insisted on playing a role in this, once it was discovered, he couldn't afford the consequences. A day later, the Cloud Wave boat landed in the Grand Cloud Empire's territory, outside the Moral Enlightenment City on the southern side of the Grand Cloud Mountain. The Moral Enlightenment City was a prefectural city in the Grand Cloud Empire. Its scale was huge, and its population was in the millions. Inside the city, it was bustling with traffic. Moreover, what made Yi Chuchen amazed was that this city was filled with the aura of cultivators. In addition to those ordinary houses with exquisite workmanship and materials, there were also a lot of cultivators' residences. For example, there were no less than 10 floating courtyards. However, the residents of the city regarded this as normal. Obviously, they had long adapted to it. And this was just a prefectural city in the Grand Cloud Empire. If it were the capital, it was unknown how prosperous it would be. Yi Chuchen couldn't help but sigh. Alas, this is indeed the Cloud region. A prefectural city has such a scene. Even the capital of the Great Ming country is quite inferior to it. No wonder people say that the Blue River region is the weakest in the 9 regions. There is indeed a gap. Wang Lu said, "If there is a gap, then catch up. What's the use of sighing about it? Or do you want to jump ship and emigrate? Yi Chuchen knew that he had repeatedly said the wrong things, which had deducted a lot of points in the leader's heart. Thus, while secretly cursing himself for being stupid, he tactfully excused himself, no longer bothering Wang Lu. After Yi Chuchen left, Wang Lu used a spell to put the cloud wave boat into his mustard seed bag. After that, he didn't hurry to enter the city. Instead, he carefully looked at the vast city outside the city. He always felt that there was something wrong with this city. Therefore, he reached out and patted Luli. "Little Luli, tell me your opinion." Luli wrinkled her nose. Her clear eyes reflected the outline of the city. Perhaps Luli would never be as smart and quick-witted as others, but because of her extremely simple temperament, she could keenly perceive the essence of things. 5 years ago, in the duel on the Grand Cloud platform, Luli was even earlier than the elders in the audience that Wang Lu had the big heart demon oath as well as the ability to reach the foundation establishment stage. Her insight was outstanding. Seems to be sick. A moment later, Luli gave a simple and crisp conclusion. Then, she took out the beef and happily ate it. Sick? Wang Lu pondered for a moment and had a general guess in his heart. Very well, let's go into the city first. This kind of bustling city should have local delicacies, right? Luli cheered. Okay. The mottled dog also began to bark non-stop, full of joy. After one person and 2 pets entered the city, they didn't show their cultivator identity. Just like the foreign tourists that could be seen everywhere in the Moral Enlightenment City, they curiously wandered around the city. My shop, 2 years ago, was still the best business shop in this area. Now, you see, how many people still come to visit. Wang Lu nodded. Then I have to thank you, boss, for reminding me. But, it's actually not a big deal, right? The boss said, yes, it's not like we can't eat any meat. Moreover, even if we don't eat meat, people won't die. Therefore, although everyone complains, their days can still go on. It's a pity that I, your father, have spent my entire life in this area, but I don't know how to eat in the future. It's just starting from the beginning. Hearing this, Wang Lu felt that he had already gathered enough information. He no longer chatted with the boss, and went straight out the door. The Beast Master School's influence in Moral Enlightenment City was still limited. Otherwise, just based on the boss' criticism of the Beast Master School just now, he would be courting death. That being the case, as long as he didn't take the initiative to stir up trouble in the city, there wouldn't be any trouble. In theory. Chapter 176. Coming out from the butcher shop, Wang Lu and his 2 best friends went to the city center. After confirming the basic environment of the city, Wang Lu felt relieved. Beast Master School's control over the Moral Enlightenment City was limited, and presumably, this division didn't regard this place as important. Most of their main force was in the vicinity of the Grand Cloud Mountain. Here, the ones promoting vegetarianism were mostly a few Qi cultivating stage and foundation establishment stage juniors. The only troublesome problem was that, if these juniors were allowed to create a storm in the city, it could be seen that the influence of the local forces and even the Wanxian League was even weaker. He also didn't know if the relevant service organizations had closed down. For a city the size of the Moral Enlightenment City, generally, the Wanxian League or the local big sects would set up an office here to receive wandering cultivators from all over the world. When Wang Lu was outside the city, he saw that there were more than 10 floating courtyards in the city center, as well as a large number of immortal cultivation facilities. It could be seen that the existence of cultivators was very common here, so there shouldn't be a shortage of offices. However, now that there were people from the Beast Master School coming to stir up trouble, things might not go so smoothly. After walking for half an hour, plus several times asking for directions, Wang Lu finally found the Wanxian League office in the Moral Enlightenment City. It was a simple and exquisite small building, with a plaque hanging on the door, Wanxian League Yunzhou Division Cloud Platform Hall Moral Enlightenment City Office. Well, obviously, the person in charge of this Yunzhou division was deeply influenced by the vernacular movement. Even the signboard was very approachable. The people of the Moral Enlightenment City were obviously familiar with this small building. Although it was located in the city center, there were not many pedestrians around, and there were no guards at the door. Wang Lu confidently entered the door and saw a spacious hall inside the building. A 23 or 24-year-old girl was sitting behind the counter. Her expression was somewhat lazy and indifferent. Seeing Wang Lu and the others come in, she hung a smile that was seriously lacking in warmth. Two Taoist friends, welcome to the Moral Enlightenment City. Please register here according to the regulations, and then you can receive a guidebook prepared by me, and enjoy the corresponding specifications of convenient services. This was basically the general rule of the Wanxian League. Wang Lu took out his and Lu Li's documents from his mustard seed bag and handed them over, waiting for the verification. Oh, you Lu, you Xian, people from the Sky Water Lakes Yu clan? The girl in charge of reception used a spell to read the information in the certificate. Seeing the unique seal of the Yu clan of the Celestial Water Lake, she couldn't help but nod. Celestial Water Lake is a cultivation family. Although it's not very strong, it has a long history and can barely be considered a famous family, at least a regional famous family. The two cultivators in front of her seem to be mediocre, but since they're from a famous family, they at least know the rules and etiquette and won't cause any trouble. However, he didn't expect that the two golden documents in his hands were forged by Yu Xiniao under the request of Wang Lu. In this trip to the north to Cloud State, at least at the beginning, Wang Lu planned to keep a low profile. The few of them came here on the Cloud Wave boat. After entering the boundary of Cloud State, they activated the formation inside the boat to disguise themselves, hiding the cloud silver coating on the surface. It looked like an ordinary second-hand flying boat, which was in line with the identity of Yu clan's cultivators. Here are two guidebooks, please keep them. They explain in detail the basic situation of the Moral Enlightenment City and its surrounding areas, as well as the matters to pay attention to. In addition, Wang Lu didn't wait for the receptionist girl to finish her words and directly handed over 3 spirit stones. I also want a senior guidebook. Seeing the spirit stones, the girl's eyes lit up. She quickly pulled out an obviously heavier book from the counter. The information recorded on it was more comprehensive and more important, so of course, it wouldn't be free. However, one book was only 2 spirit stones, so the extra spirit stone could be counted as her extra income. Wang Lu took the senior guidebook and put it away without looking at it. Then, he handed over another spirit stone. I want to find someone. The girl was startled, and then her face revealed a difficult expression. This, I won't hide it from you. If it was 1 or 2 years ago, let alone looking for someone, as long as you can afford it, we can even buy someone. But now, the Wanxian League is preparing to withdraw from the Moral Enlightenment City. Although the basic business of the office is still preserved, there is no one left to continue doing it. Even if you pay the advance payment, it will be very difficult for us to produce results. Although she said that, the young lady quietly took the spirit stone. Wang Lu nodded and said, I see that the office in the Moral Enlightenment City is indeed somewhat dilapidated. However, although a lot of the business can't be done, I've stayed here for several years. If it's simple information, I can also help you investigate, the girl said, her eyes sparkling. Wang Lu smiled and handed over another 5 spirit stones. I want to find a person called Zen Master Go Ruo. Zen Master Go Ruo? The girl immediately frowned. This. I haven't heard of any famous Zen cultivators in the vicinity. The two middle-aged women stared at Wang Lu for a while, and then the one with the bigger face warned, "Be careful what you say in the future. You also have a spirit pet, so there's no need to say those cheap jokes." Then they ignored him, because when they were outside the door, they also heard the origin of Wang Lu and Lu Li. The Celestial Water Lakes Yu family was not strong, but it was still an immortal cultivation family, so there was no need to make a big fuss just because of a joke. However, when she was about to turn around and leave, the other woman pulled her sleeve. The big-faced woman was slightly startled. Her eyes followed her junior sister's finger and was immediately startled. At this time, Wang Lu was not in the mood to talk nonsense with the two middle-aged women. He turned around to leave, but just as he took a step, he heard the big-faced woman behind him opened her mouth. "Fellow Taoist, please wait." What the hell? Wang Lu was inexplicably shocked. In broad daylight, under the bright sky, these two ugly middle-aged women actually wanted to conspire against him. "Are you Beast Master School or Yin and Yang School? Why are you so thirsty?" However, the next moment, the big-faced woman pointed her finger at the mottled dog at Wang Lu's feet. "May I ask, fellow Taoist, this little guy should be your pet? I wonder if you can part with it?" Wang Lu frowned. "Part with it?" Then he kicked the stupid dog. "Hey, he said he wants me to do a sterilization operation for you, what do you think?" The stupid dog, woof. In a state of shock, it directly bit off the big soy sauce bone. The big-faced woman twisted her eyebrows. "I mean, this thing is destined to be with my Beast Master School, so we intend to buy it." Wang Lu smiled. "How much money do you want to pay?" The big-faced woman hesitated for a moment. Because he could see that the opposite party was not a poor cultivator, it was unrealistic to offer too low a price. "I'll pay 1,000 spirit stones." While shouting, the big-faced woman felt pain all over her body. That was her savings of several years. Wang Lu replied with a smile that said "Pauper Scram," turned around, and was about to leave. "Wait, 2,000. It was the junior sister who opened her mouth to increase the price. As a cultivator of the Beast Master School, their cultivation could not be considered high, but their ability to distinguish spirit beasts was quite good. The mottled dog at Wang Lu's feet did not look special, but there was an astonishing power hidden inside its body. Although they could not distinguish its breed, they could at least confirm that it was not an ordinary one. Such a spirit beast for a mere Yu clan to raise was really a waste. If they could take it and offer it to the elders of their school, they could enjoy endless benefits. Now, with 2,000 spirit stones, they could at least get 10 or 20 times the profit. Unfortunately, Wang Lu did not care about these 1 or 2,000 spirit stones. He walked away with large strides, without the slightest reluctance. The senior sister and junior sister looked at each other in dismay. Just as they were thinking about what other valuable things they had on them, they saw Wang Lu stop his footsteps and turn around to ask a question. "Money? I don't lack it, but I want to find someone." The senior sister was overjoyed and quickly said, "Rest assured, the surrounding area of the Grand Cloud Mountain has long been our Beast Master School's territory. Even if it's an insect, we can still find it. I want to find Zen Master Go Ruo." "Zen Master Go Ruo?" The woman with the big round face looked embarrassed. Obviously, she had never heard of such a baldy. The junior sister's eyes turned, but she smiled and said, "I seem to have some impression of him." Wang Lu raised his eyebrows. "Oh? Yes, I heard Master mention him. He's an expert," the junior sister said while carefully observing the other's reaction. Unfortunately, Wang Lu's expression was cold, and she couldn't see any change. "This is not the place to talk, why don't we find a place to have a cup of tea?" While saying that, she tried to put on a seductive posture. This junior sister was indeed more beautiful than her senior sister. At the same time, her eyes couldn't help but flash with an ominous glint. In this moral enlightenment city, there were still a few areas where the Beast Master School could do whatever they wanted. Wang Lu was stunned for a moment. Then he very decisively reached out and put his arm around Lu Li's shoulder. "Sorry, I already have someone I like." Chapter 177. Faced with Wang Lu's sudden reaction, the female cultivators of Beast Master School were immediately stunned. The big-faced woman pointed at Wang Lu and Lu Li in a daze. You said, you have someone you like, but aren't you from the same family?" Wang Lu nodded. "Yes, this is my sister. I'm an incurable siscon. Every day, I have to use my sister's underwear as my pillow to sleep. Are you satisfied now?" With that, he turned around and walked away, no longer paying attention to the two people who were trying to get something for nothing, but obviously had no capital and no IQ. The two people were already shocked by Wang Lu's declaration of love. Without saying a word, they stood in place. When they came back to their senses, the two people and the dog had already gone far away. Wang Lu, just now you said I'm your sister, but I'm obviously older than you." On the road, Lu Li suddenly opened her mouth and asked a question that had puzzled her for a long time. Wang Lu touched her head. "But your IQ is lower than mine, so you're my sister." "Oh, is that so?" Lu Li nodded in understanding and tried to record this reasoning process. A moment later, she asked, "What do you mean by siscon?" "Siscon is the one who controls the younger sister. You see, fourth uncle also told you to listen to me when you go down the mountain, right?" "Oh, so that's how it is." Lu Li continued to nod. "What about sleeping on my sister's underwear?" Wang Lu was silent for a moment. This question involves a profound cultivation method. For the current you, it's still too difficult. Later, if there's an opportunity, I'll tell you. Good. After dealing with Lu Li, Wang Lu decided not to stay in the moral enlightenment city for long. Although he managed to fool the two female cultivators of Beast Master School, the other party obviously wouldn't give up. After all, the cultivation base of Wang Lu and Lu Li was currently high-level qi cultivating stage. Going out, especially in a relatively chaotic place like Cloud Region, being too outstanding was also a kind of trouble. It would give the other party a reason to take risks out of desperation. The Yu clan's identity was not considered to be a deterrent within the borders of Cloud State. At least, it was not as strong as the beast-taming sect's name. Looking at it from a comprehensive point of view, there was a 70 to 80% chance that the other party would take the risk out of desperation. Speaking of fear, Wang Lu was certainly not afraid. Not to mention that the other party was merely in the middle stage of foundation establishment. Even if a middle stage Shudon stage cultivator came, Wang Lu would still be able to deal with the opponent in 3 to 5 rounds if he was serious. However, before he went down the mountain, sect head uncle specifically looked for him and told him one thing. "Wang Lu, you have been cultivating in Spirit Sword Mountain for 10 years. In these 10 years, you have surprised everyone on the mountain. Even among the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League, your performance is the best. Whether it was the cultivation method or other aspects. I don't want to say that this is necessarily a bad thing, but you're still young, so there's no need to lock your own style. This time, when you go down the mountain, I hope you can promise me one thing. No matter what problem you encounter, make a concession once. Of course, only once. After making a concession, if the other party is still aggressive, you can solve the problem in your own way." At that time, Wang Lu thought for a moment, and then asked, "Can this be regarded as a challenge task arranged by the sect?" Sect head Daoist master said with a smile, "Very well, consider it as a higher requirement for your experiential learning. If you can successfully complete the challenge, naturally, you will get the corresponding reward points." In accordance with the original agreement, Wang Lu chose to make a concession in front of the office building. Of course, only in his own eyes could it be counted as a concession. Right now, Wang Lu chose to go out of the city. On one hand, although this moral enlightenment city was big, if he wanted to inquire about the news of Zen Master Go Rua, it was mostly hopeless. The Wanxian League didn't know, and neither did the Beast Master School. The identity of this Zen Master Go Rua was much more mysterious than he expected. Perhaps only by going to the Grand Cloud Mountain himself could he find the clue. On the other hand, although according to the rules, he had to choose to make a concession in the first possible conflict, but at that time, it didn't say that he couldn't fish. If he took Lu Li and the model dog out of the city, if the two women were tactful, then everything would be fine. If not. Wang Lu looked at Lu Li and the stupid dog beside him. After practicing the fighting method for many days on the mountain, he finally had a chance to put it to use. The female cultivator of Beast Master School did not let Wang Lu down. Not long after he went out of the city, in the woods, Wang Lu was intercepted by the two of them. Of course, this wasn't strange at all, because the stupid dog still had the tracking spell that they had cast on it. Beast Master School's spirit beast-related spell was one of the best in the Wanxian League. Even the cultivators of the 10,000 Arts sect often cooperated with the Beast Master School in related aspects. The cultivation of the two women was mediocre, but their technique was quite brilliant. If not for Wang Lu and Lu Li's level of cultivators, they wouldn't have been easily discovered. Fellow Taoist, please wait. The same words were said for the second time, without the previous restraint and politeness. The two female cultivators looked solemn, as if they were afraid that others wouldn't see that they were robbers. Even the senior sister with the big round face directly took out her magical tool, a glittering golden whip. However, the first one to open her mouth was the prettier junior sister. She reluctantly hung a smile, trying to be polite before resorting to force. Fellow Taoist, previously in the city, you left in a hurry, so I haven't had the time to finish my words. The spirit dog beside you is fated with my Beast Master School, so no matter what, I hope you can part with it. Wang Lu smiled. Fated? Why don't you tell me about it? That junior sister had obviously done her homework. She earnestly said, fellow Taoist must have heard of the reputation of my Beast Master School. In terms of training and training spirit beast, we are second to none in the 9 regions. Although your family also has its own specialty, it's not good at beast taming. And then? Your spirit dog is innately supernatural. If it can be properly trained, its future is limitless. Forgive me for my rudeness, but if you raise it like this, I'm afraid it will be wasted, a reckless waste of God's gift. And then? The junior sister frowned. And then? And then, if you really want it well, then naturally you should give it a better future, instead of using the reason of years of affection and so on to bind it. Wang Lu almost spurted out blood, thinking, where did this woman find these lines? Even if I'm really a cis-con, it's absolutely impossible for me to like this human beast thing. However, after spurting out the rice, Wang Lu didn't forget to retort, according to your words, if a man really loves a woman, he must find a way to give her a strong aphrodisiac, and then take advantage of the night to throw her on the bed of a tall, rich, and handsome man. If he can get pregnant with a child, in the future, there will be no lack of glory, splendor, and wealth. At the same time, a man should hide outside the window, listening to his beloved woman being fucked by a tall, rich, and handsome man. Is this the rhythm? With that, Wang Lu let go of Lu Li's ears and waited for the response of the two middle-aged women. After a while, that junior sister fiercely said, a despicable and vulgar master like you doesn't deserve to have a spirit pet. At the same time, the magical tool in her hand gradually lit up, and the situation became more and more dangerous. Wang Lu ridiculed, since you want to be a whore, then don't give me a chastity arch blocking the road and snatching the dog, yet still saying it in such a dignified way, "You're really worthy to be from a small animal rights organization." The two female cultivators no longer answered. At this point, what else could they do but make their move? The two of them carefully stared at each other and found that the other party's attention was focused on the magical tool in their hand, so they couldn't help but feel relieved. They were probably the newcomers of the Yu family who had just gone out for experiential learning, so their experience was seriously insufficient. How could they focus on the cultivators of the Beast Master School? However, when they were about to sneer and make their move, they suddenly heard the girl named Yuxian say with a smile, "What a cute puppy." With that, she took 2 steps forward, bent her body, and stretched out her hand. The light distorted, and an unwilling white-haired puppy was pressed by Lu Li's hand on its head, and then it could no longer move. The complexion of the two female cultivators suddenly changed. The invisible white-haired dog was the most proud spirit pet of senior sister Chen Dongji. Its ability to hide itself was so great that even Shudan-stage cultivators would not be able to detect it. It was a good weapon for sneak attacks. Unexpectedly, before the fight had even started, it had been pulled out by the opponent's seemingly innocent little girl. At this time, looking at Yuxian's innocent smile, the two female cultivators of the Beast Master School felt a chill in their hearts. This person, is she really stupid or just pretending to be stupid? Wang Lu was not surprised at all. Not to mention that invisible dog, even he could see through it. With Lu Li's heaven-defying insight, even in the Spirit Sword Mountain, without the King Pill level method, it would be impossible to hide from her eyes. And these two female cultivators of the Beast Master School had the arrogance of robbing them, but their strength was too low. Xian, air. Wang Lu resisted the nauseating feeling all over his body and came up with such a name. Huh. Lu Li didn't care at all. She happily teased the puppy in her hand. Seeing that the other party was trembling in fear, she even tried to feed it snacks. In this urgent situation, it actually showed a bit of childlike warmth. But Wang Lu's next sentence completely destroyed this atmosphere. The one in your hand is tonight's dinner. Lu Li gawked and subconsciously made a swallowing action. The invisible white dog that was stroked by her delicate hand finally couldn't bear the despair and simply fainted. Junior sister, do it. Chen Dongji roared. The whip in her hand turned into a mass of golden cloud. Even though most of her ability came from her spirit beast, as a foundation establishment cultivator of a high-rank sect, her own skill was definitely not weak. Unfortunately, it depended on who she was compared with. Xian, air, do it. Although the order came later than the opponent, Lu Li's reaction was too fast. Before Wang Lu's voice fell, the girl's flying sword had already directly pierced through Chen Dongji's golden cloud, breaking her original magical tool and causing the woman to suddenly spurt out a mouthful of blood. Then the sword light turned and deftly landed on the side of the junior sister's neck. With just a touch, her whole body's defensive spell was completely broken. The junior sister didn't even have the time to call her spirit beast for help before she could no longer say even half a word. After defeating the two female cultivators, Lu Li retrieved her flying sword and single-handedly picked up the unconscious puppy. After sizing it up, she somewhat embarrassedly turned her head and asked, "Do you really want to eat this little guy tonight?" Before Wang Lu had the time to speak, he heard Lu Li pleadingly said, "Don't eat it, okay, brother." Brother. Wang Lu felt a buzzing sound in his head. You idiot, actually used your killing move on your own people at this time. Chapter 178. When the stupid Lu Li unleashed her big move on her own people, Wang Lu really couldn't resist it. He froze for a moment, and it was at this moment that the two female cultivators of Beast Master School narrowed their eyes. Go! Then two golden lights flashed. As a low-level disciple of Beast Master School, the life-saving talisman was activated. The escape talisman wrapped the two people into a ball and quickly flew away. Luli looked at the ball of golden light that flew away. Although she could immediately intercept it, the girl didn't pay attention to it. Instead, she continued to stare at Wang Lu with her big watery eyes, expressing her pleading will. Wang Lu unceremoniously reached out and slapped her on the head. Idiot! Because she had long been accustomed to such criticism, Luli didn't try to feel wronged anymore. She just sincerely asked, "I'm sorry, did I do something wrong?" Wang Lu sighed. "Two things. First, you're one of the top sword cultivators in the Lingjian school and even in the immortal cultivation world of 9 regions. You must have your own strength of character, reserved, and domineering aura. In short, don't act spoiled. Second, do I look like a person who will eat anything?" With that, Wang Lu pointed at the little white dog that was left behind by the 2 female cultivators of Beast Master School. "This thing is our captive. I'll treat you to something else for dinner." Luli breathed a sigh of relief. "I know you're the best, brother." Wang Lu suddenly felt an irresistible chill from his non-phase sword bone. "Don't call me brother." "But, didn't you say I'm your sister?" "My sister can't be so cute. Later on, you can just call me senior brother. In any case, I'm the lead disciple of the sect, so I'm half a level lower than you." Okay. Although she couldn't understand it, Luli had an excellent advantage, which was that she never asked why. After dealing with Luli, Wang Lu splashed the captive invisible white dog with cold water. Resuscitation, the puppy immediately turned invisible and tried to escape. As a result, just as half of its body turned invisible, it saw a pair of red eyes staring at it. It was a spirit dog with mixed fur that was about the same size as him. It looked silly and had a piece of marinated bone in its mouth. However, the small body seemed to hide a hell. The terrifying might it gave off almost caused the puppy's soul to freeze, and the instinctive technique it cast was disrupted and rendered ineffective. The mottled dog glanced at it and snorted in disdain. Its mouth continued to chew on the bone, as if it was saying, "If you dare to run, this bone will be your end." Little White whimpered and raised its head to look at Wang Lu and Luli. Its eyes revealed a begging look. Wang Lu saw that the other party was already well behaved, so he nodded and said, "Can you speak human language?" The little white dog shook its head in fear. "Don't worry, Bien, you translate." Wang Lu kicked the stupid dog. The stupid dog unwillingly shook its body and spat out the bone. "Really King troublesome." Then it barked at the little white dog. The little white dog trembled and whimpered for a while, and then pitifully waited for its punishment. Bien pondered for a moment and then said to Wang Lu, "This grandson is called Little White, the spirit pet of that female cultivator. He is willing to surrender, but because of the contract with Master, he can't say anything about Master and the sect." Wang Lu was amused. This little thing has no moral integrity, surrendering so quickly. As for the contract, Xian Er, do it. Luli reached out and touched Little White's head. The little thing suddenly felt a sharp sword intent enter its primordial spirit along the top of its head. However, it cleverly avoided all the vital parts and directly touched an invisible extension line. The next moment, Little White felt its primordial spirit loosen, and a certain force that had bound it for many years disappeared. The contract between it and its master was actually lifted. Luli's brilliant sword heart could cut everything in the world, and the contract force of Beast Master School was naturally no exception. Without the binding of the contract, Little White soon sold out its master's situation without any moral integrity. Wang Lu had no interest in the privacy of the 2 middle-aged women, but their motive for not hesitating to become bandits to intercept the dog was very interesting. In fact, from the beginning, Wang Lu thought that it was not unusual for the Beast Master School to be hated by the people in the Moral Enlightenment City. However, for the two middle-aged women to openly rob the road, there must be some interest driving them. No matter what, the Beast Master School was still a righteous sect. For their disciples to openly rob a cultivator from an immortal cultivator family, the risk they had to bear was really huge. Without any interest driving them, it was impossible. And from Little White's mouth, Wang Lu learned that the Beast Master School was recently carrying out a large-scale operation. The entire division, from top to bottom, nearly 1,000 people were involved in it. And the big-faced woman and other disciples were assigned a strange task, to collect various kinds of spirit dogs and bring them back to the mountain. Moreover, this task was quite urgent. For this reason, the elder who was in charge of the big-faced woman even clearly said, "As long as it's a good dog, no matter what, bring it back to the mountain, there will be a generous reward. If anything happens, I will take responsibility for it." Forcing a prestigious sect to issue a robbery declaration, it could be seen that the Beast Master School was really in desperate need of spirit dogs. However, this was even more strange. In the Wanxian League, among the tens of thousands of sects, there was probably no one who was better at taming spirit beasts than the Beast Master School. Moreover, the Beast Master School had always been the biggest seller in the spirit beast market, so how could they be in urgent need of spirit dogs? Unfortunately, if he continued to ask, Little White would be powerless. After all, he was just a dog, so he didn't know too much about it. However, this information was enough for Wang Lu. Since the Beast Master School's demand for spirit dogs has reached the level of hunger, then we probably don't need to do anything, the reputation value will come knocking on our door. At the same time, on the Grand Cloud Mountain, Chen Dongji and her junior sister were trembling. Lowering their heads and looking down, they resisted the anger of their master to keep standing. In other words, not only did you fail to bring back that rare breed, you even lost your own spirit dog? A tall and sturdy man with a bare upper body and bulging muscles coldly questioned. Chen Dongji replied with a trembling voice, "Disciple is incompetent and has lost face for the sect. I am willing to accept punishment from the elder." That sturdy man sneered, "Punishment? Even if I dismember the two of you into 10,000 pieces, so what? It sounds nice, but if I really punish you according to the sect rules, you two will still cry and beg me to spare your lives." The senior sister and junior sister's hearts sank, simultaneously considering whether or not they should kneel down and beg for mercy. "Forget it, this time the opponent's strength is too much stronger than you. Even my sect's beast taming contract was broken by them, so it's not strange that you are not their match. Only, when did the Celestial Water Lakes U family produce such a strong disciple?" The elder muttered to himself, his brows gradually knitted together. The junior sister boldly said, "Master, although those two people are powerful, their cultivation is still low, so there's nothing to worry about. Moreover, they broke the contract, thinking that their trick succeeded, but in fact, they revealed a flaw. Little White comes from the beast taming school, so it's not difficult for us to trace its position. If we follow the clues, we will definitely be able to find that strange spirit dog." The muscular elder glanced at her, "You're going to find it?" The junior sister was suddenly speechless. This disciple's cultivation is low, I'm afraid they are not their match, so you want me to act? Humph, this kind of aristocratic family's disciple is the most troublesome. If you beat the young one, the old one will come out. Although the rumor says that the Celestial Water Lakes U family is only a marginal aristocratic family, but to be able to cultivate such a disciple, how can it be simple? Right now, our branch's matters are urgent, so there's no need to complicate matters. But it's strange, why did they come to the Grand Cloud Mountain? The junior sister boldly said, "I remember that person said he wanted to find a person called Zen Master Go Ruo." Zen Master Go Ruo? The elder frowned and repeated this name a few times. Suddenly, his expression changed, "Zen Master Go Ruo. F***ck, it's clearly Zen Master Dog Meat, that son of a bitch. You're even giving me an accent? You too, tell me the characteristics of those two people in detail again. After listening to the two female disciples, the elder still had no clue, but after thinking about it, his anger won over his usual caution. Forget it, let's first capture those two people. If we can hang that bastard, that's naturally the best. If we recognize the wrong person, worst comes to worst, I'll go to Celestial Water Lake to apologize. The Yu family won't be able to say anything. The two female disciples' hearts immediately calmed down, but the junior sister rolled her eyes and asked, Master, that strange mongrel spirit dog, their Celestial Water Lake has never been good at beast taming. Giving that rare spirit dog to them is a reckless waste of natural resources. If they really love that spirit dog, they should know the principle of obediently letting go. In other words, after capturing the two of them this time, he naturally wouldn't spit out the spirit hound or whatever. Seeing that her master agreed to help, the big-faced female cultivator immediately raised her eyebrows. Her magical weapon was destroyed by Lu Li's sword, which made her quite distressed. After thinking for a while, she suggested, Master, I think that Yu Xian's flying sword is also extraordinary, do you want to? The elder angrily said, Our beast master school is not a bandit sect. If you want that spirit dog, you still have a good reason to do so, but if you want to take other people's magical weapon for your own use, how do you explain that? Chen Dongji was immediately dumbfounded. However, the quick-witted junior sister said, those two people have a spirit dog and a top-notch magical weapon. Presumably, they are the talented disciples that the Yu family has nurtured. Usually, they are arrogant, so they don't know the severity of their actions. It's normal for their magical weapon to be damaged. Upon hearing this, Chen Dongji thought that this was nonsense. However, when she turned around, she saw her master gently smiled without saying anything. Immediately, she realized the truth. Then she sighed at the gap between them. No wonder her junior sister's cultivation base was slightly lower than hers, but their cultivation base was basically the same. Moreover, her master liked her more. Well then, let me see how good those two Yu family's geniuses are. After saying that, he stood up. However, at this time, the complexion of this brawny man changed when he heard the summon from the division Great Elder. What? The target has appeared? Okay, I'll go. He turned around and said to the two disciples, Senior brother is looking for me, so I can't refuse. As for you two, forget it, I'll let Silverback accompany you. With that, the elder's feet exerted force, and like a cannonball, he soared into the sky and flew away. The two female cultivators were dumbfounded as they watched a gorilla that was taller and sturdier than their master slowly walk in. Each step it took made the room slightly tremble. The gorilla walked to the front of the two female cultivators. His condescending eyes carried a trace of disdain and irritation. The two female cultivators greeted him while trembling with fear. Greetings, Uncle Silverback. I've just heard from Senior Brother. You two lead the way. I'm going to take down those two juniors and that spirit dog. Chapter 179. Beast Master School was famous in 9 regions for controlling spirit beasts. Almost every cultivator in the school had one or even several spirit beasts, but the method of controlling them varied from person to person. Chen Dongji, who used the spirit dog as a tool, still belonged to a relatively low level. When it came to the level of the sturdy elder, his cultivation base had reached the king pill level, and his method of controlling spirit beasts would also change accordingly. First of all, with the improvement of the master's cultivation base, the level of the controlled spirit beast would usually also rise. After all, the master had already reached the king pill level, so the controlled spirit beast's Niden could not be condensed, otherwise, it would be useless. Once the level of the spirit beast rose, its wisdom would usually also increase, becoming more human-like and clever. At this point, if the spirit beast continued to be used as a tool, although it was not impossible according to the contract, the instinctive resistance of the spirit beast would greatly weaken the effect. Therefore, usually with the improvement of the spirit beast's level, the master's status would also correspondingly increase. For example, the gorilla in front of Chen Dongji was his master's brother. Even within the Beast Master School, he was officially a cultivator. Except for not being able to hold a high-level management position in the school, the other privileges were almost the same as a human cultivator. The various ideas advocated by Beast Master School might be extreme, and there were many voices of opposition and even ridicule in the 9 regions. However, the sect has been working hard to implement the ideas they propagated, which was why they were recognized and respected by the Union of 10,000 Immortals. The master of Chendongji and Chendongji was one of the cultivators in the school who advocated equality between humans and beasts. Of course, this equality between humans and beasts was only limited to immortal cultivators. Mortals, of course, were not counted as humans. He and his natal spirit pet called each other brother, treating each other with sincerity. Now that he was summoned by his senior brother, he had no time to get away, so he handed over the task of capturing the 2 people of Yu family to Silverback. And since this huge gorilla could win today's status, its strength naturally could not be underestimated. In terms of the grade of monsters, it was at least a level 4 or 5 monster. Its Niden had long been formed, and it also cultivated the superior cultivation method bestowed by the Beast Master School, so its comprehensive strength could be compared to a high-level Shidon cultivator. Moreover, this spirit beast was born with great strength. Although it didn't have many magical abilities, once it got close, even a peak Shidon stage cultivator would have a big headache. Of course, if he encountered a cultivator who was good at fighting, he would naturally have many ways to toy with this gorilla that only had brute force. However, this time, his opponents were only 2 little cultivators who were at most in the Foundation establishment realm. What kind of tricks could they play? Therefore, to Chendongji and Yu Yang, even though their master had some matters to attend to and was unable to come out, when they saw their martial uncle Silverback coming out, their hearts felt at ease. They thought to themselves that the Yu clan's 2 reckless fools were going to be in big trouble. On the other side, Wang Lu and Lu Li restarted the Cloud Wave boat and unhurriedly flew toward the eastern direction of the Moral Enlightenment City. In the flying boat Immortal's Cave, Wang Lu set up a barbecue rack with great interest and roasted a wild boar for Lu Li. The little girl beamed with joy and even sang a song. The song was sweet and pleasant, without a lack of childlike interest, but also had an ethereal and clear taste, making people feel as if they were floating in the clouds, feeling refreshed. After the meal, Wang Lu tidied up the remaining skeleton, which he threw to the captive Xiao Bai to gnaw on, while thinking about the next step of the plan. While he was thinking, he suddenly heard Lu Li ask, Senior brother, we seem to be going in the wrong direction. Isn't the Grand Cloud Mountain north of the Moral Enlightenment City? We're going to the east. Wang Lu nodded his head. Not bad, we actually found the north. But, you're still stupid. Who said we're going to the Grand Cloud Mountain? Lu Li's eyes widened. Her mind was in a mess. Senior brother, didn't you say you're going to the Grand Cloud Mountain to deliver the letter? How, that's the general direction. But at this stage, the Grand Cloud Mountain is so big, can you find Zen Master Go Ruo? Moreover, we've just fought with the Beast Master School, so do you want to run to their headquarters and take the initiative to ask for permission? Right now, regarding Zen Master Go Ruo, the Wanxian League and the Beast Master School are unreliable, so naturally, we should look for the original owner of this place, the White Dragon Temple. I don't really understand. Lu Li frankly said, but, as long as I listen to you, senior brother, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. This is, a Siscon, right? Yes, you're worth teaching, Wang Lu said. His eyes couldn't help but wander around Lu Li's plump chest. This chest is indeed worth giving. No, this is simply becoming a perverted siscon. I'd better think about how I'm going to open my mouth when I meet the good-for-nothings of the White Dragon Temple. However, before Wang Lu could reopen his train of thought, he saw Little White, who was gnawing the bone, suddenly shivered. Then, it revealed a fearful look and barked. Its eyes were eager, as if it was warning something. Wang Lu smiled. He didn't let Bien translate it. Because Little White's action was enough for him to make a judgment, the long-awaited Beast Master School pursuers have arrived. Descend. Without needing to look, without even needing to confirm the other party's position, Wang Lu launched a spell to descend the Cloud Wave boat. Although he wasn't afraid of the Beast Master School pursuers, in case he accidentally damaged this deluxe version of the Cloud Wave boat, it would be too late for regrets. When the Cloud Wave boat landed, Wang Lu, Lu Li, and Quan Zouhua walked out of the flying boat. Before long, a black shadow, like a meteorite, penetrated the ground from the sky. Bam! A giant beast with a height of more than 3 meters, clad in 100 battle armor and holding a waist-thick silver stick, fiercely examined the opponent in front of it. Its pair of spirit beast eyes quickly saw that the opponent's cultivation base was middle-level foundation establishment. It then let out a beast-like roar and questioned. Are you the ones who injured my Beast Master School people? Hand over the spirit dog, and I'll let you go. Wang Lu burst into laughter. He simply didn't care about the deterrence of the giant beast. Lu Li even clapped her hands and laughed. What a cute monkey. That silverback gorilla froze for a moment, and then suddenly felt a burst of anger. Thereupon, it coldly snorted and slammed the weapon in its hand on the ground. The earth quaked, and a vigorous and violent energy was transmitted from the ground, ready to explode under Wang Lu's feet. Once this power erupted, it would immediately shatter the jade mansions of those 2 middle-level foundation establishment cultivators and shake their primordial spirit. However, Wang Lu took a step forward and firmly stepped on it, just in time to intercept the shock force of the silverback's attack. That Shudon-level attack was stepped on by this foot, trembled for a moment and then collapsed. Unexpectedly, it didn't play any role at all. While the silverback was still in shock, the opponent's counterattack came. Xian, air, take it down. Oh! Lu Li very obediently called out her usual flying swords. 2 flaming red swords were held in her hands. The next moment, the girl swiftly thrusted forward, and in a flash, she appeared in front of the silverback and slashed the 2 swords together. Such a quick surprise attack surprised the silverback. Fortunately, its cultivation base was profound. At the critical moment, it raised its weapon horizontally in front of the 2 swords, trying to block the opponent's attack and then waiting for an opportunity to counterattack. However, the next moment, the blazing heat from the swords, as well as the invincible sharp sword intent, broke its defense with a loud bang, which made every hair on the silverback's body stand up in pain. The innate great strength of the spirit beast allowed it to barely withstand the impact of the opponent's slash. However, after this blow, its 2 thick arms had faintly trembled, and the lingering pain continued to stimulate its primordial spirit, making it extremely painful. As far as its eyes could see, there were 2 deep black slash marks on its beloved weapon. The magical weapon, which was refined from hundreds of kinds of metal refined from underground gold, was almost broken by the opponent's blow. And this was just to resist the opponent's attack. The silverback simply couldn't imagine how a middle-level foundation establishment cultivator could have such a powerful attack that it, a spirit beast comparable to high-level Shudon, couldn't withstand it. However, before it could exclaim in surprise, an even more shocking thing happened before its eyes. After the first round of slash, the girl unexpectedly turned around and slashed again, and the power was several times stronger than the first strike. In an instant, the silverback judged that it absolutely could not block the second strike. The opponent's absolute power was not as good as its own, but this sword strike contained a special power that was far beyond its brute force. Although the silverback couldn't recognize the brilliant sword heart, it was, after all, a battle-hardened spirit beast of the Beastmaster school. Thus, it immediately made the right choice. It thrust its blade forward, ignoring the fire sword that was about to reach its body, and assumed a posture of mutual destruction. The silverback was, after all, a powerful spirit beast that had cultivated for more than 100 years. The timing, direction, and strength of this stab were all just right. Even if it couldn't resist Lu Li's sword, it could at least take her down with it before it died. Even if Lu Li's brilliant sword heart had thousands of variations, in the face of a Shudon stage cultivator's mutual destruction, she had no choice but to retreat. However, Lu Li didn't have the intention to retreat. With her delicate body, she faced the magical weapon of the silverback. The two swords in her hand set off a raging flame, and then she directly chopped it down. Because she knew that the counterattack of the silverback would naturally be blocked by someone else. In the past 5 years, when she fought side by side with Wang Lu, she never needed to worry about defense. This time, of course, was no exception. Sure enough, a familiar sword shadow appeared right in front of her. Wang Lu stepped on Lu Li's flying sword, and the sword of Mount Kun in his hand was as fast as lightning. Although it was launched later, it arrived first and hit the stick in the hand of the silverback, completely blocking the counterattack force of the silverback and then feeding it back. On the other side, Lu Li's fiery sword also chopped down. Simultaneously receiving Lu Li's brilliant sword heart and its own full-strength counterattack, the silverback gorilla was seriously injured and vomited blood on the spot. Were it not for the 100 battle armor on its body that offset more than half of the damage, plus its innate tenacity, this blow would have been enough to kill it. However, even so, it had lost the power to fight again. It could only clench the stick with its huge palm, using its fierceness that was imprinted in its bones to barely support itself from falling down. Its pair of red pupils contained unyielding and anger. In the face of this heroic scene, Wang Lu did not resonate with it at all. He just looked at the opponent playfully, and then with a sword strike, he cut off its fingers that were holding the stick. The silverback screamed and fell to the ground. Its voice was incomparably miserable. However, Wang Lu just put his foot on its head and forcefully stomped it into the ground. Pretend, continue to pretend. You're obviously a beast that wants to rob me, yet you still want to pretend to be a vulnerable group? Since you don't want this face, I'll bury it for you. Chapter 180. Gorillas had never been strong and resilient creatures. Compared to those natural predators such as jackals, wolves, tigers, and leopards, even if it had a strong physique, its sensitivity and fear of pain and death often made it unable to display its full ability in actual combat. Silverback was a gorilla that had turned into a spirit. Although its cultivation was successful, it still inherited the defects of its biological instincts. Its cultivation was not weak, but its courage, cultivation, and character were not commensurate. It was very afraid of death. And the reason why its master favored it was because it was smarter than other spirit beasts, so it could stand on its own without the need for too much force. And Silverback's reaction was indeed worthy of its master's expectations. The moment it was defeated, it guessed that the two young cultivators before it were likely to be the genius disciples of some big sect. It was impossible for the cultivator clans of Celestial Water Lake to cultivate such powerful foundation establishment cultivators. These two people must have borrowed the identity of Celestial Water Lake clan to go out to gain experience, so Silverback immediately put on a mighty and unyielding martyr image. For those young cultivators who lacked experience and still had unrealistic fantasies about the mortal world, this martyr image was the easiest to win sympathy and the easiest to escape. Although Silverback was a spirit beast, it had gradually become familiar with human nature. Unfortunately, the opponent it encountered this time was obviously not so easy to deceive. Regarding Silverback's method of seeking life in the face of death, Wang Lu's response was to cut off its fingers with his sword and then forcefully step on its head. These two simple actions scattered all the thoughts in Silverback's mind, replacing them with only a thick fear that could not be resolved. Then, Wang Lu's indifferent voice came into its ears. "From now on, I ask, you answer. If you can't answer, you die. If you play tricks, you still die." Silverback nodded again and again, not daring to hesitate in the slightest, let alone talk about any conditions. It could see that compared with its own road robbery, the opponent was obviously more ruthless, more lawless, and that ice-cold killing intent was not the least bit fake. If it was a little careless, the opponent would absolutely dare to kill it. First of all, let's start with something simple. Name, gender, age, position. Silverback, male, orangutan, 136 years old. Wang Lu coldly asked, "Okay, next question. I heard that the Beast Master School is collecting rare spirit dogs near the Grand Cloud Mountain. What's the reason?" Silverback was startled. He didn't expect that the other party would ask this question instead of anything else. This was the sect's secret, and if it was really leaked out from its mouth, then. However, just as Silverback hesitated for a moment, Wang Lu's sword of Mount Kun was startled and unceremoniously stabbed into Silverback's thick arm. Amidst the beast's miserable howl, blood gushed out like a fountain. You can take your time to think about the wording, but the longer you think, the more blood will flow. Wang Lu's tone was indifferent as he sheathed his sword, but the tip of the sword was pointed at the back of Silverback's neck. Silverback trembled as he opened his mouth to speak, but then he heard Lu Li suddenly frown and questioned Wang Lu, "Senior brother, I remember it's written in the sect's rules that we can't oppress weak creatures." Silverback felt as if it had heard the sound of nature. Even though the heavy injuries on its body were mostly caused by this girl, it still couldn't help but want to praise her 32 times. Well said, how could a righteous disciple abuse the weak? Even if you want to kill it, you can't abuse it. However, in the face of Lu Li's serious questioning, Wang Lu didn't explain too much. Although this result was basically the Beast Master School's own fault, intercepting them in broad daylight, brazenly trying to snatch the spirit dog, and even made the first move. Moreover, when making the first move, they didn't hesitate to injure or even kill people. For this kind of bandit behavior, using violence to curb violence was already considered very cheap. However, with Lu Li's cognitive ability, why did it need to be so complicated? Wang Lu just smiled. "I'm not abusing it, but cooking." "Cooking?" Lu Li's beautiful eyes widened. Once again, she felt that her brain capacity was a bit insufficient. Wang Lu said with a smile, "Orangutan sashimi, have you ever eaten it?" Lu Li awkwardly frowned. "Later on, we'll take the monkey's brain. Right now, these are the necessary steps of cooking, absolutely not abusing it. So, you can rest assured and wait to eat it." Lu Li's willowy eyebrows stretched out, and then she said with a grin, "I know senior brother is the best, you would never violate the sect's rules." Silverback was simply dumbfounded, thinking, no, this is absolutely not right. How can this kind of nonsense explanation pass the test? Which sect's rules are so undignified? Unfortunately, before he could think too much, the sword of Mount Kun had already pierced his body. The intense pain robbed Silverback's ability to think. As a spirit beast that wasn't good at enduring pain, Silverback really couldn't bear it. Therefore, he finally divulged the sect's secret. "Because we are refining a spiritual treasure-level beast collar, we need to use the spirit of 10,000 dogs. Relying solely on the spirit dogs of the division is far from enough. Therefore, we need to collect all the spirit dogs in the vicinity of the Grand Cloud Mountain. Although the strength of the spirit dog around you is not strong, it's a very special breed, which is very valuable for refining spiritual treasure. Therefore, no matter what, we have to get it. Wang Lu nodded and slightly withdrew the sword of Mount Kun. Refining the beast collar requires the spirit of 10,000 dogs? Wang Lu pursed his lips, recalling what he had learned in the Ten Cloud Hall in the past 2 years. In his study plan, the path of tool refining would only be strengthened after he reached the Shudan stage, so he didn't study it too deeply. However, according to his basic common sense, what Silverback said should be true. The most important magic weapon of the Beast Master School to tame spirit beasts was the beast collar. Once the spirit beast was hooked, its magical power and primordial spirit would be involuntarily controlled and could only be at the mercy of others. This was a magic weapon used by the Beast Master School to deal with spirit beasts that were difficult to tame. However, the beast collar was certainly not omnipotent. The more magical and powerful the spirit beast was, the more difficult it was to tame it. For example, it was very difficult to use a magical tool-level beast collar on Silverback. However, this time, the Beast Master School wanted to refine a spiritual treasure. In the end, what kind of spirit beast was worth using a spiritual treasure to trap? What's more, it was indicated that the beast collar had to be refined with the spirituality of a spirit dog. This kind of beast collar targeted at a special breed was far more effective than versatile. In conclusion, could it be that the Beast Master School wanted to catch the howling celestial dog? When Wang Lu threw this question to Silverback, the gorilla cursed in his heart. He had deliberately avoided this question and only talked about the beast collar. But he didn't expect the other to immediately ask. However, if he continued, it would seriously harm the school's interests. Silverback hesitated for a long time, not daring to open his mouth. Who knew that Silverback's hesitation made Wang Lu's eyes light up? Oh, you're hesitating and don't dare to speak? It seems this is the core problem. Combining the existing conditions, I guess you found a rare spirit dog on the Grand Cloud Mountain. Perhaps its strength is not strong and its grade is not high, but it's especially good at hiding and escaping. Your division has many spiritual masters, but they can't do anything about it. Therefore, you came up with the idea of refining the beast collar. You want to use the spiritual treasure level beast collar to suppress the dog-type spirit beasts within a radius of 100 miles, so as to limit its mobility. Under the horrified eyes of Silverback, Wang Lu continued to speculate, for your Beast Master School to muster such a large force, not even hesitating to become a bandit, it's probably because you want to end this quickly, and can't afford to delay. Why do you want to end the battle quickly? Are you worried that someone will obstruct you? Why are you worried that someone will obstruct you? Because that spirit dog is also of great value to other schools, so much so that they don't hesitate to oppose your Beast Master School? So, if I'm not mistaken, it should be a super high-level young spirit beast? Or maybe it's an immortal beast? As the Silverback gorilla's heart gradually turned cold, Wang Lu chuckled. Although my guess may not be accurate, I think whether it's the White Dragon Temple, Gentle Cloud Mountain, or even the dozens of immortal cultivation sects within the Grand Cloud Empire, they would all be very interested in my guess. A young immortal beast, even the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League won't be indifferent. So, why don't you take a guess, if I were to spread this news, what kind of miracle would happen? The next moment, a heavy voice burst from the sky. If you really want to do this, I guarantee you won't live past today. Hearing this voice, the Silverback gorilla's face stiffened, and then it was uncontrollable ecstasy. At the same time, hiding in the distance, Chen Dongji and Li Yingying, who had witnessed the whole process with trepidation, could not help but cheer, "Master." It was the Beast Master School's King Pill Elder who sensed that Silverback was in danger through the Spirit Beast contract. Let go of Silverback and surrender, and I'll spare your life." When he spoke, the elder was still dozens of miles away, but his voice had already passed over first, and it was wrapped in the pure magical power of Taoist Master King Pill. As the sound waves rolled, the vibrating force directly penetrated into the opponent's jade mansion, trying to shake the primordial spirit. The fire-thunder incantation of elder from a high-rank sect, King Pill, could hurt people even dozens of miles away. Regarding Taoist Master King Pill's preemptive strike, Wang Lu just casually brandished the sword of Mount Kun. The invisible non-phase sword Qi drew out his sword defense, encircling Lu Li and the mottled dog. That sound wave disintegrated at the edge of the sword defense. Wang Lu propped up his defense, carefully savoring the countershock force from the sword tip. He had already judged that the opponent was a genuine Taoist Master King Pill. Although it was only a low-rank King Pill, and the quality of King Pill was not too good, for the two Foundation establishment stage like them, it was still a terrifying opponent. At this time, Silverback, who was stepped on the ground, lowered its head, hiding the ominous glint in its eyes. Wang Lu was indeed formidable to be able to block the fire-thunder incantation. However, as soon as its master came closer, with the Beast Master School's secret method, it could instantly break free. Man and beast fusion would increase its master's strength, which would then be able to easily take down these two Foundation establishment stage insects. As for Wang Lu, he was still not in a hurry. After offsetting the fire-thunder incantation, he pointed the sword of Mount Kun toward the direction of the sound. Is that the Joker invited by the monkey? At the same time, his left hand made a gesture toward Lu Li. The girl's face showed a trace of surprise, but her hand's movement was as fast as lightning. The fiery sword flew out of her hand and went straight down from the top of Silverback's head, immediately taking its life. However, that gorilla's strange smile was still hanging on its face. "How dare you? You're courting death." Immediately followed by Elder King Pill's thunderous fury, which soared to the sky and dyed the entire sky with the color of the setting sun. Wang Lu inwardly sneered, "Do you think I'm a fool? Who doesn't know that the cultivators of Beast Master School have the strongest fighting power when they join hands with the beast? If I don't take advantage of the time when you're separated to deal with one side first, then when you're together, we'll fall into a bitter fight. Therefore, I'll break your arm first, and then you can play with your bird alone, you fool." Chapter 181. When the news of Silverback's death came from the primordial spirit contract, the corresponding punishment was also fed back to its master. In an instant, Elder Chi Ho felt as if he was in a sea of fire. His primordial spirit violently trembled, as if it was about to melt on the spot. This was the punishment of the contract. When he enjoyed the convenience of the spirit pet as the master, he also had to bear the responsibility of guarding the spirit pet. A moment of carelessness caused him to lose his right-hand man. The resentment of Silverback's death was fed back through the contract, making him feel so much pain that he wished he was dead. As if it was only a trivial moment, but also as if it had been a long time, Chi-Ho's whole body trembled as he passed through the punishment of the contract. In addition to the pain, there was also ferociousness on his face. Those two bastards must die. Moreover, they must die in the most painful and cruel way. After death, their bones would be ground into ashes, their primordial spirit would be extracted and put into the furnace to suffer eternal suffering. They dared to kill Silverback. No matter how big their background was, they couldn't stop his revenge. Elder Chi-Ho clenched his teeth. His anger had long been boiling. However, on the other hand, under the flame refinement, his fire element heart was exceptionally calm, so that he didn't lose his mind. Instead, he was more clear-headed in analyzing the situation. This time, it was indeed their side that made a mistake. At first, they only thought that they were elite disciples trained by the Yu family of Celestial Water Lake. Therefore, they didn't care about Silverback, who was not particularly good at fighting. Who knew that this mistake in judgment would actually send Silverback's life? It was just that, seeing Wang Lu's sword defense to resist the fire-thunder incantation, as well as Lu Li's unstoppable flying sword, she knew that these two people were definitely not people that could be cultivated by the Yu family of Celestial Water Lake. It was very likely that they were the successor disciples of the first-rank sections. The so-called Yu family of Celestial Water Lake. Either this family had some dog shit luck, and their disciples were taken in by the big sects, or this signboard was simply a cover, and these two people were just used to hide their identity. In a place like Cloud Region, the title of genius disciple of a big sect brought convenience, but it was also accompanied by considerable risk. Because everyone knew that genius disciples were priceless. Not only because of the sect treasures they carried on their bodies, but also because of these genius disciples' top-grade spirit roots, it was enough to turn them into walking human-shaped nourishing pills. Many evil cultivators love to pluck these genius disciples to nourish themselves. Since he recognized that the opponent's background was not ordinary, Chi Ho put away the contempt in his heart. At the same time, he also knew that this battle could not be rushed. A disciple of such a large sect would definitely have a life-saving item given to him by the sect. It would either be something like the escape talisman that could allow him to escape quickly, or something like the Golden Bell shield that could set up an absolute defense, or he would simply have an essence soul avatar of the sect's elders following him. However, no matter which one it was a trump card that he would not use unless it was absolutely necessary. Once he used it, he might be able to successfully overcome the current crisis, but his trip down the mountain could be considered to have come to an end. What Chi Ho wanted to do was to make the opponent have no time to bring out these cards. As for the method, it was best to use the tactic of boiling a frog in warm water. Drag the opponent into a protracted battle and deliberately reveal flaws to make them think that victory was in their grasp. Then, thinking of this, Chi Ho slightly converged his own magical power. Although his strength had declined greatly after losing Silverback, the King Pill realm was still there. How hard could it be to deal with two Foundation establishment cultivators? After all, he didn't personally witness the defeat of Silverback. Thus, he only calculated that if he didn't restrain himself a bit, perhaps in 3 to 5 moves, he would be able to force the opponent into a desperate situation. Then 2 dazzling fiery red sword lights completely interrupted his thinking. Chi Ho was extremely surprised to see Lu Li rapidly approaching him. It was hard to believe that a mere Foundation establishment girl actually dared to so arrogantly take the initiative to attack, and even more difficult to believe that a mere Foundation establishment girl could actually wield such a sharp sword intent. The sword tip has yet to arrive, but that unstoppable brilliant sword intent has already directly penetrated Chi Ho's magical power protection and touched his primordial spirit. Even though Chi Ho's cultivation base was far superior to the opponent's, and his primordial spirit strength, he still felt an unbearable pain in an instant. Chi Ho immediately resorted to a beast skull that was covered with blood-colored war tattoos. The eyes of the skull bloomed with brilliant light, which shone on Chi Ho's naked upper body. A ferocious aura came from this ancient beast skull and poured into Chi Ho's body along the war tattoos. Immediately, his bones elongated, his muscles swelled, and he turned into a half-man, half-beast monster that roared and pounced. Oh, is this the beast transformation of Beast Master School? Xian Er, go all out. Seeing this change, Wang Lu sent out a command with his eyes. Without hesitation, Lu Li released the 10 flying swords that were hidden in her sleeves and gathered them around the 2 swords. Her attack power rose to another level. Her pair of eyes that were filled with innocence also became as indifferent as ice, and her brilliant sword heart began to operate at full force. As for Wang Lu himself, one of his hands wrapped around Lu Li's slender waist, while the other hand held his sword. The thick and heavy sword body was wrapped in sword momentum, like an indestructible shield. A moment later, a collision occurred. Lu Li's full strength thrust the two swords against Chi Ho's chest. His bronze skin, soaked in sweat, blossomed with a metallic brilliance. With a sharp piercing sound, the two fiery swords drew a string of sparks on his chest, leaving behind two scorch marks. However, they couldn't really break the skin and hurt the muscle. The defensive power of Taoist Master King Pil was beyond doubt. Lu Li's ever-successful brilliant sword heart couldn't even penetrate the outermost defense of his body, and the sword intent that was aimed at his primordial spirit was also neutralized by his boiling fighting intent. At the same time, Lu Li felt that the world turned dark, and a terrifying shadow fell from the sky. It was the giant beast's skull that was enlarged thousands of times. 2 rows of sharp teeth were on her head, which then fiercely bit down. However, Lu Li didn't even look at the approaching death. With a flick of her wrist, she let go of the fiery sword and then grabbed the 7th metal sword from the side. She then turned around and stabbed again. Her movement was as smooth as floating clouds and flowing water. However, the power of the two swords was comparable to the first burst of thunder, inconceivably fast. With 2 loud noises, Lu Li's 7th metal sword fiercely hit the opponent, and the 2 rows of sharp teeth of the giant beast's skull also fiercely closed. Finally, a drop of blood oozed out from Chi Ho's chest. However, the giant beast's skull that he used to counterattack was firmly opened by 2 powerful arms. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't close it. Wang Lu tried his best to open up a space for Lu Li. Although it wasn't big, it was enough for the girl to turn her waist, borrow the momentum, and then replace the 2 lightning-flashing flying swords. When she attacked again, her power had gone up another notch. Chi Ho's countenance finally changed. Lu Li's continuous sword strikes had no interval for her to catch her breath. Each sword strike was more powerful than the previous one, and it seemed to be endless. Although his stage was higher than her by a stage and a half, if he continued like this, perhaps he would only be able to receive 2 sword strikes at most before his foundation would be injured. Originally, he intended to use the method of boiling the frog in warm water to numb the opponent bit by bit, and then wait for the opportunity to strike, so that the opponent would have no room for resistance. However, who would have thought that after 2 or 3 moves, there was actually a faint sign of defeat? On the other side, perhaps the ancient beast's skull had lost its power from tens of thousands of years ago, but its bite force was enough to cut gold and break jade. How could a small foundation establishment stage cultivator withstand it with her body alone? However, as long as Wang Lu's 2 hands supported him, the 7 feet space was unbreakable. After the 3rd collision, blood spilled from the corner of Wang Lu's mouth. However, Lu Li's wind and thunder sword also made Chi Ho's face show a trace of unnatural redness. Senior brother, the 8th level of King Pil -5, I only need 3 more sword strikes to defeat the opponent. When she turned around for the 3rd time, Lu Li's clear and cold eyes revealed her instinctive judgment. Wang Lu nodded, took a deep breath, and suppressed the unceasingly shaking jade mansion. Sure enough, Chi Ho wasn't in his best condition. Instructing Lu Li to kill Silverback with 1 sword strike was indeed the right decision. Not only did it cut off Chi Ho's opportunity to merge with his beast, it also destroyed his beast taming contract, causing his strength to be greatly reduced by the backlash. Although he had the King Pil stage, he couldn't fully display his ability. Otherwise, even if his real ability was to merge with his beast, his fighting power would be greatly reduced. However, since he came from a 3rd-rank sect, his comprehensive strength shouldn't have fallen to the level of -5. Good kid, you've pushed me too far. How could Chi Ho, the dignified Taoist master of the King Pil stage, sit still and wait for death? The ominous glint in his eyes was even more flourishing as he roared, white teeth, come out." Wang Lu also roared, "Quan Zouhua." Knowing that Qi Ho's card wasn't just the beast transformation, Wang Lu didn't let the stupid dog make its move. At this time, hearing Qi Ho's roar, he immediately pulled out his own card. The stupid dog roared, its nose slightly trembled, and then it rushed to a certain place. Even though his trump card was being countered, Qi Ho only had a cruel sneer on his face. The next moment, his body swelled up by 3 times, and a blood-red battle pattern appeared on his cheeks. His aura doubled in strength. It was as if there was a steady stream of power pouring into his body. Damn, immortal mode. As the top student of Spirit Sword Sect, Wang Lu could see through Qi Ho's means at a glance. This King Pill Elder's quality was really not something that the inferior King Pill Elder could compare to. In addition to Silverback, he also had other spirit pets, it was just that he didn't bring them with him. During the fight, that spirit pet would hide in the distance. Once it was called, it would immediately use the secret technique of Beast Master School to absorb the surrounding spiritual energy and transform it into pure magical power, which would then be transferred to Qi Ho, allowing his power to surge. In Wang Lu's view, wasn't this method of inhaling and exhaling spiritual energy exactly the immortal mode? Lu Li didn't need to test the strength of the opponent in immortal mode. Wang Lu could already guess it. He immediately reached out and patted Lu Li's shoulder, and then roared, "Withdraw." When the girl turned around for the 4th time, upon hearing this, she suddenly paused and her movement slowed down. Seeing this, Qi Ho wildly laughed. "Want to run?" Too late. Nobody knew when, but the skull of the ancient ferocious beast had been enlarged thousands of times, forming a huge cage that covered the sky, trapping the 3 of them inside. With this skull as a restraint, Qi Ho wasn't afraid that the opponent could escape. Even if Lu Li used her full strength to slash it, without 3 to 5 strikes, she wouldn't be able to break the skull. Not to mention how could Qi Ho let the opponent break the skull? However, the next moment, in Qi Ho's astonished eyes, Lu Li suddenly accelerated after turning around for the 4th time. The 2 blazing swords in her hands thrust straight at him, carrying an unprecedentedly strong sword intent that was unstoppable. Damn it, I've been tricked. Just as he thought of this, the fiery sword has already heavily stabbed Qi Ho's throat. The magical power of the fire element on the sword and the incomparably sharp sword intent poured out from the tip of the sword. The power of this sword strike had firmly reached the level of King Pill. However, after this sword strike, Qi Ho was forced to retreat several steps. His complexion changed, and his throat was scorched black. However, very soon, new granulation squirmed out from the wound, showing that Qi Ho didn't suffer too serious of an injury. In immortal mode, Qi Ho's defensive ability was far from what it used to be. No matter how strong Lu Li's brilliant sword heart was, she couldn't get rid of the restriction of high-level foundation establishment. She couldn't even condense her Shudan, thus, in the face of the Daoist master of King Pill, she was somewhat powerless. Qi Ho coughed out several mouthfuls of blood. Looking inside, his jade mansion has been damaged in several corners. Inwardly, he was inwardly shocked, thinking, I wonder how many high-level foundation establishment cultivators with such powerful attack power can be found in the 9 regions? The other party most likely concealed their cultivation base, otherwise, it would be impossible for them to be this sharp. However, this was the end of it. If the opponent wanted to win, they must first unlock their own immortal mode, causing their strengthened attack and defense to fall again. And if they wanted to unlock their immortal mode, they must defeat their own spirit pet, White Teeth. The spirit dog sent by Wang Lu might have an excellent bloodline, but its current strength was not strong, far from being the opponent of White Teeth. At this time, White Teeth might have already captured Wang Lu's model dog. As long as he defeated the opponent in front of him, he would be able to declare his victory in this fight. And the immortal mode Daoist master of King Pill, facing two middle-level and high-level foundation establishment cultivators, had an overwhelming advantage. At this time, looking at Wang Lu and Lu Li, Qi Ho seemed to be sizing up his spoils of war. Especially Lu Li, which made people involuntarily look at her. However, at this time, a mournful dog bark suddenly came from afar. The sound was full of fear and panic. Qi Ho's complexion changed as he recognized that it was the voice of White Teeth. What the hell, what is the origin of that mottled dog that even White Teeth couldn't take it down? It must be known that White Teeth was stronger than Silverback. If not because he didn't like dogs, his spirit pet should have been White Teeth. The next moment, a burst of complacent laughter came from the air. Qi Ho's complexion turned even uglier, because the answer has been revealed. Ha ha ha, what a fat and lean big black dog. Tonight, I'm going to eat to my heart's content. Zen Master Guru, you son of a bitch. Just as his anger rose, Qi Ho spurted out a mouthful of blood. White Teeth was already dead. Chapter 182. Go all out. Almost at the same time when Qi Ho vomited blood, Wang Lu made his judgment. Lu Li took a deep breath. Ignoring the fact that her magical power had been depleted due to her continuous outburst just now, she just strictly followed Wang Lu's instruction. She raised her last bit of strength, turned around, and swung her sword. Then, the girl saw Qi Ho's eyes that were full of humiliation and unwillingness. The dignified Daoist master of the King Pill was actually forced to the point of no return. Qi Ho clenched his teeth and activated a talisman on his body. Escape talisman. Before the fight, Qi Ho was still calculating how to intercept the opponent if she used something similar to the escape talisman. However, unexpectedly, after a fierce fight, the one who used the escape talisman turned out to be himself. The dignified King Pill had to flee in defeat in front of two Foundation establishment cultivators. This humiliation would probably be difficult to wash off in his lifetime. However, no matter how humiliating it was, living was better than dying. After losing two spirit pets in succession, Qi Ho's strength had fallen to the lowest point. Since he mastered the King Pill, he had never been this weak. The omnipotent King Pill in the middle of his jade mansion was dim, and vaguely, there was even a tendency to disintegrate. That was a sign that his cultivation base was greatly damaged, a sign that he would fall back to shoot on stage. In this case, there was no need to consider what kind of recuperation he would have to go through to recover. Lu Li's final blow alone was something that he absolutely couldn't withstand. Therefore, he decisively activated the escape talisman. However, the next moment, in Qi Ho's shocked and angry eyes, he saw Lu Li's two swords turned into a group of shadows, which seemed real and illusory at the same time. However, it actually chopped an inch in front of Qi Ho, cutting off an invisible connection. That was the connection line between Qi Ho and the ancient vicious beast skull. Lu Li's sword could cut through all things. Unexpectedly, while the opposite party was unprepared, her sword actually cut off the connection between Qi Ho and the skull. The interruption of this connection was originally not a problem. As the owner, Qi Ho only needed a breath's time to re-establish the connection. However, now, Qi Ho didn't even have a breath's time to activate the escape talisman. His huge figure, in a split second, turned into a ray of light, flew to the sky, and in the blink of an eye, disappeared on the horizon. As soon as Qi Ho left, the huge skull lost its source of magical power. It suddenly shrank back to its original position and fell to the ground with a rumbling sound. Wang Lu conveniently picked up the skull. This was the first valuable loot since he went down the mountain for experiential learning. Although the grade was not high, just a high-rank magical treasure, its commemorative value was different. This was the loot from the fierce fight between Wang Lu and Lu Li, who were still in foundation establishment stage, against Daoist Master King Pil. However, Wang Lu didn't have the time to carefully play with it. He pulled Lu Li and went in the direction of the stupid dog. Although he didn't witness the incident just now, he could guess that there must be a kind-hearted passerby who pulled out a sword to help and directly beheaded White Teeth. Only then did Chi Ho leave with hatred in his heart. Now, the first thing he needed to do was to meet that kind-hearted passerby. Previously, that person shouted that he wanted to stew the big black dog for dinner. Obviously, he had a soft spot for dog meat. And although Hua Hua, that stupid dog, was stupid and small in size, its meat quality. Passing through several clumps of woods, Wang Lu saw a kind-hearted passerby next to a stream. Unexpectedly, the one who caught his eye was a young woman who looked about 25 or 26 years old. She was tall and had picturesque facial features. She wore a luxurious purple dress, which gave her a somewhat noble and otherworldly temperament. However, her smile seemed a lot more approachable. Her body's magical power fluctuation was completely restrained, making it impossible to see the depth of her cultivation base. Unexpectedly, the chivalrous person who saw injustice was actually a woman. Wang Lu was slightly startled. Especially when he saw that the woman was single-handedly carrying a rather large black dog, sizing it up and down with a smile on her face. This sense of incongruity became even heavier. However, thinking of the other party's help just now, Wang Lu still followed the etiquette rules learned in the Tingyun Hall and solemnly saluted, "I am Yu Lu of the Celestial Water Lake. This is my junior sister, Yu Xian. Thank you for your help just now." The woman smiled and waved her hand, "Don't mention it. I mainly wanted to solve the problem of dinner. Moreover, even without my help, your spirit pet wouldn't have lost." As she spoke, she had already taken out a knife and cut open the belly of the black spirit dog, White Teeth. Then, she began to cook it on the spot with the stream water. Her movements were skillful and swift. "Hee, the quality of this black dog is really not bad. It is fate that we met. If you don't mind, why don't you taste my cooking later?" I might not dare to say anything else, but in terms of cooking dog meat, there are not many people in the entire Yunzhou who can compare to me. This woman was frank, generous, and hospitable. Wang Lu looked at her for a long time, but he didn't find any trace of falsehood on her face. He couldn't help but smile. "Then I will be indebted to your hospitality." "Good, you are straightforward enough." I found that there are a lot of people in this Yuntai mountain who, as soon as they hear that they can eat dog meat, can't wait to cut people into pieces. Really, it's not like they are eating the meat of their parents, it's really interesting. Wang Lu said, "It's just a joke, why do you care?" As he spoke, he looked around, looking for his model dog. He thought to himself, "This stupid dog has stupid luck. It shouldn't have been smothered by the swordswoman, right? Looking for your dog? It is hiding over there and doesn't dare to see me. Just now, it was about to swallow this rare big black dog. In order to avoid wasting God's gift, I scared it. Oh, don't worry, no matter how greedy I am, it's impossible for me to cook and eat the descendant of Fenrir." Wang Lu was shocked. This woman knows Fenrir. The woman raised her head and smiled, "I have eaten a lot of dog meat, so I have done some research on similar animals. However, to be able to raise Fenrir as a pet, you and the little sister over there shouldn't be from Tianshui Lake, right?" After his lie was exposed, Wang Lu shrugged his shoulders. "In Jianghu, it's important to be low-key. Very well, let me introduce myself again. I am Wang Lu, and this is Lu Li, from Spirit Sword Mountain in Blue River region. Oh, I am Shao Qi, you can just call me Qinyang." Halfway through her words, the woman stood up in surprise. "You are disciples of Lingjian school? Then it's really fate. Do you know a guy named Wang Wu?" We, old friends, haven't seen each other for many years. This time, it was Wang Lu's turn to be surprised. It was not unusual for a Lingjian school cultivator to have friends outside, but that bitch Wang Wu actually had friends. This was too inconceivable. Besides making enemies, what else could she do? Thinking of this, Wang Lu's thoughts turned again. Could it be? Although this speculation was absurd according to common sense, thinking that she was his master's friend, Wang Lu felt a bit relieved. Excuse me, do you know Zen Master Go Ruo? Xiao Qi blinked. Zen Master Go Ruo? That's me. Wang Lu sighed. Looking at the fresh dog meat in the woman's hand that had already been cut into pieces, he guessed that the so-called Zen Master Go Ruo was probably Zen Master Guru. However, why did such a beautiful woman have the title of Zen Master? Qingyang, are you a Zen cultivator? Xiao Qi tilted her head and thought for a moment. I don't think so. You have a profound Zen method, and you're familiar with Zen scriptures? Xiao Qi waved her hand. Who's interested in that stuff? Wang Lu sighed. She was indeed a person who had drunk wine and meat for a long time. Then why do you call yourself Zen Master? Xiao Qi blinked. Because I'm really gluttonous. Pfft. It turned out to be a gluttonous master. You're simply a scammer, okay? Xiao Qi indifferently said, but to say it, I do have some relationship with Zen, so some people like to call me Zen Master Guru. For the time being, I'll admit it. With that, she looked at Wang Lu. Are you Wang Wu's disciple? Wang Lu thought that since the other party was his master's friend, it was not surprising for her to see his origin. The magical power fluctuation of non-phase method was very special. Although the version that Wang Lu and Wang Wu practiced was different, it was still the same. Exactly. Wang Lu replied. That's good. Last time when we parted, she borrowed 200,000 spirit stones from me. You're her disciple, shouldn't you pay for your master's debt? Wang Lu did not hesitate. No way. Xiao Qi was silent for a moment. Don't you want to show your filial piety to your master? Looking at your cultivation base, Wang Wu should have spent a lot of effort on you in the past few years, so you ought to repay her. Or is it that you have inherited the glorious but poor tradition of non-phase peak that you are powerless? Wang Lu earnestly replied, money, I do have it. Although I don't dare to say that I'm rich, there's no pressure to pay for her debt. However, it's for her sake that this debt can't be paid. Xiao Qi was so angry that he wanted to laugh. You non-phase peak master and disciple are really carved from the same mold. Why don't you tell me why you can't pay it back? Because once this starts, there will be no end to it. I believe that master's debt should be a habit. Creditors are everywhere in the world. If they heard that I'm willing to pay for her debt, I'm afraid they will immediately flock to me. Xiao Qi laughed. Are you afraid that you can't pay it back? I'm afraid that after I pay it back, master would think that a pie fell from the sky and turn around to borrow money. Right now, she has a bad debt, and her credit value has long fallen below the bottom line. I believe no one would be willing to lend her money. However, if the debt is paid off, and her credit rating returns to normal, I think it's not difficult to imagine what she would do. That's a bottomless pit. Xiao Qi was suddenly silent. Very well, I admit that what you said is reasonable. Later on, when I have time, I will find her face to collect the debt. In order to further distract her, Wang Lu changed the topic. This is the letter that master asked me to bring to you. Seven took the letter and casually opened it. Her eyes lit up and she finished reading it. A smile appeared on her delicate face. Wang Lu didn't need to guess to know that his master certainly didn't write anything good in the letter. Your master said that the model dog you brought is a strange beast from the western continent, Fenrir. If I can deceive that Fenrir and sell it, we can split the profit 50-50. It's not unusual to sell this kind of quasi-immortal beast for millions of spirit stones. Introducing this great opportunity to me is her paying off her debt. Then, Xiaoqi somewhat dispiritedly threw away the letter. If I knew this, I wouldn't have read the letter in front of you. Wang Lu was silent for a moment, and then said, when you go to Spirit Sword Mountain to collect the debt, if you need to drug or sneak attack, I can fully support you. After you succeed, contact the brothel or human traffickers, I can also do it for you. Ha ha ha, you're indeed a pair of master and disciple. Xiaoqi looked at Wang Lu with approval. Speaking of which, I have something to ask of you. Chapter 183. There's something I want to ask of you. Over at the Grand Cloud Mountain, the Beast Master School bastards have built a branch. It looks very unsightly. Help me think of a way to eradicate it. While speaking, Xiaoqi's expression became incomparably indifferent. Although he had already anticipated that this gluttonous master dog meat would inevitably be at odds with the Beast Master School who advocated equality between humans and beasts, Wang Lu did not expect the contradiction between the two to be this sharp. Senior Xiaoqi looked delicate and handsome, with a kind and amiable temperament, but the moment he opened his mouth, he wanted to exterminate the entire branch. Sure enough, a woman's heart is the most poisonous. Hey, I only want to exterminate the branch, I didn't say I want to exterminate their entire clan. Don't act too fiercely. Wang Lu shrugged his shoulders, do you mind telling me how Senior became enemies with them? Xiaoqi hesitated for a moment, then softly said, in fact, it's not a big deal. The Beast Master School collected several thousand spirit dogs on the Grand Cloud Mountain to refine beast collars. Then when I passed by, I ate more than half of those spirit dogs, so we became enemies. Several of their elders unceasingly chased me, and after several fights, the enmity grew bigger and bigger. Wang Lu could not help but sigh, you really King deserve it. Liking to eat dog meat was one thing, this was a personal hobby, a personal freedom. Unscrupulously eating dog meat in the Beast Master School's territory was already a public slap in the face, quite impolite. But considering that eating meat was the norm around the Grand Cloud Mountain, and it was the Beast Master School who forcefully reversed the public opinion, it was fine. But this guy actually directly ate the spirit dogs that other people had painstakingly collected. What was the difference between this and directly coming to someone's house to defile their wife? The Beast Master School was not a good person, how could they tolerate it? It would be strange if they did not become enemies. At this time, looking at this hearty and good-natured senior, Wang Lu could not help but sigh with emotion. To be able to become good friends with his master, there was no way his personality was not twisted. As for helping to flatten the branch? To be honest, on this trip to the Grand Cloud Mountain, Wang Lu was indeed planning to earn some reputation points from the Beast Master School, but he didn't want to earn his sin points as well. After all, the Beast Master School was still a righteous sect. In the past, during the Great War of Immortals and Devils, they had made great contributions. Although many of the school's ideas were extreme and undesirable, and the quality of the disciples was also mixed. For example, Elder Chi Ho, who tried to extort the Quan Zohua, strictly speaking, had already committed an evil act. But you can hate them, and secretly set some obstacles, but in the end, you can't brazenly go to their front door. Seeing the frown on Wang Lu's face, Xiaoqi only smiled. How about this, you come with me and see the situation of the Beast Taming School's division. If you don't want to help, I won't force you. When Wang Lu heard this, he frowned even tighter. Qingyang meant that there was something hidden behind it? Fine, I'll let her experience it then. With Xiaoqi leading the way, the group of people flew in the direction of the Grand Cloud Mountain. As a good friend of Wang Wu, Xiaoqi dared to challenge an expert of the Beast Taming School's division by himself, so her magical power was naturally not bad. According to Wang Lu's estimation, she was at least at the level of King Pill. She alone carried 2 people and a dog, and her speed was not much slower than Wang Lu's cloud wave boat. When they were close to the Grand Cloud Mountain, Xiaoqi took the initiative to descend, and used a technique to cover up their bodies, smell, and other traces. Then, using his primordial spirit, he said, "Follow me, don't make any noise." Xiaoqi's concealment technique was very powerful. The group of 3 people quickly walked through the mountain forest, and very soon, they entered the boundary of the Beast Taming School's division, but they didn't trigger the Beast Taming School's early warning formation. The Grand Cloud Mountain had been operated by the Beast Taming School for about a year. Even though it couldn't be said to be filled with killing intent at every step, there were still a lot of mechanisms and formations. But Xiaoqi was very familiar with the road, so they walked as if they were walking on flat ground. Occasionally, they would come across a patrolling Beast Taming School disciple, but their group would just stroll past them, and unexpectedly, the other party didn't notice anything unusual. It was reasonable to say that the Beast Taming School had many spirit beasts, and the 5 senses of spirit beasts were far stronger than that of ordinary cultivators. So, the interior of the division should be the most heavily guarded. But until Wang Lu and the others arrived at a call in the hinterland of the Grand Cloud Mountain, they were not discovered by anyone. And in the call, Wang Lu saw an astonishing scene. No less than several thousand spirit dogs were gathered in the call, and the small space seemed to be very crowded. These spirit dogs all had special collars tied around their necks. The Beast Taming School's collars were supposed to be magical tools to nourish the body and primordial spirit, but if one looked carefully, one could clearly see a subtle flow of life from the spirit dogs' bodies to the collars, and then it was gathered and transported by the formation in the call to a distant place. These collars were simply plundering the life energy. At this time, in the call, most of the spirit dogs seemed to be dispirited and listless. Similarly, the nature of the heaven and earth spiritual energy in this place was also unpleasant. With Wang Lu's void spiritual root, he could clearly see a withered yellow color, as if the fire of life was about to be extinguished in despair. Among these several thousand spirit dogs, there was no lack of sick and injured ones, but the Beast Taming School did not give them any treatment, leaving them to fend for themselves. And even if it was a spirit dog with a strong physique, living in this kind of lifeless call, with its life force constantly being sucked away, was still a dead end, not to mention those sick and injured ones. Xiaoqi turned his head and asked, "How do you feel?" "I feel like I can understand your way of doing things." Xiaoqi said, "In order to catch young immortal beasts, the Beast Taming School gathered tens of thousands of spirit dogs to refine the spirit treasure beast taming collar. This is not a problem, but the refining process may cause certain harm to the spirit dogs, and this is also not a problem. However, this kind of bone-crushing, bone-sucking, exploitation is really rare. This division elder's method of refining the beast taming collar is unconventional, refining the negative emotions of tens of thousands of spirit dogs. Therefore, he forced these tens of thousands of spirit dogs into a bad situation, constantly producing pain, despair, and other emotions, and then extracted them with the collar and special array, turning them into spiritual treasure materials. Fortunately, it's the dogs that provide the materials, not people. Otherwise, based on this scene alone, the Wanxian League would not turn a blind eye, and the law enforcement team would have long come to kill them. Wang Lu slowly nodded, lost in thought. Lu Li couldn't stand it anymore. Her clear eyes sparkled with tears. Why are they so cruel? Don't the Beast Taming School love their spirit beasts? Xiaoqi smiled. The Beast Taming School people love their spirit beasts? That's a big joke. Carefully think about the name of their school, it's Beast Taming School, not beast-loving school. If they really love their spirit beasts, how could they put them above their spirit beasts? How could they put a collar on their spirit beasts? Lu Li still found it difficult to understand. They preach in the moral enlightenment city too, Xiaoqi sneered and interrupted her. Vegetarianism? What's even more ridiculous is that there are many kinds of spirit beasts, and quite a few of them are natural carnivores, unable to digest vegetarian food. When the beast-taming school raised these spirit beasts, how do they feed them? Isn't it by slaughtering them to provide fresh meat? They just prohibit mortals from eating meat. In their eyes, mortals are even worse than animals. Not to mention most of the division elders are cats, and they're hostile to spirit dogs. In short, remember, among the tens of thousands of cultivators in the beast-taming school, there's no lack of great cultivators who have a heart of universal love. However, in recent years, this school has expanded too fast, and there are crooks and honest people mixed in the school. There's no lack of these bastards on the Grand Cloud Mountain. Otherwise, why do you think they can't stay in the southern heaven region and have to come to the cloud region to survive? Lu Li was still puzzled. Obviously, she couldn't understand. Therefore, Wang Lu patted her head. Remember these three conclusions. First, the beast-taming school people are lying. Second, therefore, these beast-taming school people are not good people. Third, therefore, when we kill them, we don't need to have any guilt and hesitation. Lu Li thought for a moment and then nodded. I understand. The nearby Xiaoqi was surprised and asked, "This child?" Wang Lu stretched out his hand and circled around his head. Xiaoqi suddenly revealed a look of understanding, and then looked at Lu Li with a bit of sympathy. In short, the situation is like what you see. The last time I passed by here, what I saw was even more tragic than this. Wang Lu asked, "So you ate the dogs?" Xiaoqi indifferently shrugged. "What else can I do? Being put on the beast-taming collar and having their primordial spirit refined by this life vitality gathering array is basically a dead end. Leaving behind an incomplete primordial spirit and a corporeal body, which will be squeezed by the beast-taming school to produce negative emotions to refine the beast-taming collar. I thought that since I'm going to die sooner or later, I might as well let them die in my stomach. That way, I can reincarnate in the future." Wang Lu nodded to show his understanding. This Zen master guru was obviously not a dog lover. Killing these thousands of spirit dogs, freeing them, could be considered a good deed. As for how to deal with the corpses, obviously, she wasn't kind enough to be willing to bury them. Thus, putting them in her stomach could be considered as passable. I just pity those thousands of dogs that died in your stomach, how innocent they are. Xiaoqi angrily said, Hey, how do you teach your Lingjian school Chinese? Dying in your stomach and dying in your stomach are two different concepts. I'm sorry, but since the situation is like this, then I have no problem with it. This kind of heartless branch, indeed, the sooner they die, the sooner they'll be safe. For Wang Lu, since both sides had the same goal, and this senior Qinyang didn't have any intolerable flaws in her character, then both sides could cooperate happily. Good, I knew that the disciple that fellow Wang Wu accepted must also be a straightforward person. Wang Lu reserved his opinion on this. Having obtained Wang Lu's support, Xiaoqi was in a good mood. Turning his gaze, he saw the thousands of spirit dogs in the abyss of suffering and wiped his mouth. In order to celebrate our cooperation, why don't we have a good meal first? Then, just as he was about to break the array and plunder the corpses of those spirit dogs, Wang Lu was taken aback. Are you sure? Right here? So violent and direct? Facing Xiaoqi's complicated gaze, Wang Lu immediately explained, I mean, the last time Beast Master School suffered such a big loss, it's impossible for them not to be vigilant and let you do it again. We sneaked all the way here. Although the process was smooth, it may be the result of the other side throwing a long line to catch a big fish. With that, in order to deepen his persuasiveness, Wang Lu also pulled Lu Li over. Xian, I think we should withdraw now. Tell me about your intuition. Lu Li earnestly said, I agree with senior brother's point of view. If we continue, it may be dangerous. Shao Qi's gaze became more complicated. Do you think a fool's judgment is convincing? I am not a fool. Lu Li softly but firmly protested, Master has taken me to do a test. Wang Lu snappily pressed her head. Shut up. Unfortunately, it was too late. In the end, Shao Qi couldn't resist the temptation of good food. Ignoring Wang Lu and Lu Li's persuasion, he slightly opened his right hand and made a gesture with his 5 fingers. A mysterious spell quickly condensed, which drove the surrounding spiritual energy to change. However, at this time, a sudden change occurred. The peaceful surrounding spiritual energy suddenly surged up. The surrounding mountains suddenly rose up, forming a natural cage, trapping the several people inside. The surrounding mountain rock barrier blocked the sunlight, casting a heavy shadow. A sharp, slightly immature but no lack of hostility female voice echoed in the cage. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Sure enough, you guys came. Chapter 184. Shao Qi tried to break the array and plunder the spirit dog. However, just as her spell was about to take shape, a strong change in the surrounding spiritual energy interrupted her spell. Shao Qi frowned and withdrew her right hand. Then, she heard a woman's voice reverberating in the valley. Zen Master Guru, you're really bold. You actually dare to come to my Grand Cloud Mountain. Don't you know this is a dead end? While speaking, in the air, a slender figure appeared in their line of sight. That person was obviously the elder of the Grand Cloud Mountain division of the Beast Master School. Through the teleportation array, he released an astonishing imposing manner as soon as he appeared. His enormous magical power was like a surging tide, surging and surging violently. It was like the tide contained a profound rhythm. With just this one move, he revealed his peak gold core stage cultivation level. Tisk, look at what you've done. You've provoked a question mark level old monster. Wang Lu helplessly sighed. His right hand has already reached into his mustard seed bag. Inside was a spirit sword heavenly talisman, which could, at the critical moment, ignore any imprisonment and directly send him back to the mountain. Its effect was simple, direct, and violent. In Wang Lu's view, it was as defying as the save point. It was his trump card as a professional adventurer. However, once he used this trump card, his professional adventurer's reputation would be smashed by half. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he would not consider it. However, in the face of a peak-level King Pill opponent, if he didn't use it, he would die. If not for the unfathomable Zen Master Guru by his side, he would have immediately activated the heavenly talisman and brought Lu Li back to the mountain to take refuge. He simply couldn't let a peak-level King Pill person make the first move. Humph, what's there to be afraid of? It's just a mere peak-level King Pill. Senior Shao Qi curled her lips in disdain. Wang Lu finally made up his mind, thinking, sure enough, she's my master's friend, so her strength is very high. A mere peak-level King Pill is an insurmountable peak for a middle-level foundation establishment cultivator, but for a senior, it's just a novice village guard. Looking at the slender figure in the air again, Wang Lu couldn't help but exclaim, Catwoman. It turned out that the Beast Master School elder who appeared to suppress the scene was actually a cat-eared girl. She seemed to be only 12 or 13 years old, even more immature than Lu Li. The 2 furry ears on her head were exceptionally quick-witted, and there were several strands of whiskers on her cheeks that constantly trembled along with the girl's mouth opening and closing when she spoke. There were also the sharp nails on both of her hands, all of which showed the inhuman characteristics. Most likely, it really wasn't a human cultivator, but a spirit cat. This kind of situation wasn't rare in the beast taming school. Once a spirit beast reached a certain level of cultivation, it could become a regular cultivator of the school and enjoy all the rights and privileges. However, it would be difficult for it to be promoted to the senior management level. However, the elders of the branch established in the cloud state were not high-level managers. At the same time, looking at the cat-eared girl, Wang Lu also understood the hardships of the thousands of spirit hounds in the kernel. It was the law of heaven and earth that cats and dogs did not conform to each other. Letting a spirit cat serve as the elder of the branch, naturally, the spirit hounds around the Grand Cloud Mountain would have a hard time. If it were jackals, wolves, tigers, leopards, and the like, which needed a lot of fresh meat to maintain their nutrition, the creatures of the entire Grand Cloud Mountain would bear enormous pressure. However, the cat-eared girl who appeared in the air didn't expect that under the pressure of her King Pill's imposing manner, there would actually be someone who dared to be absent-minded. In her eyes, Zen Master Guru was already no different than a dead person, and then turned to Wang Lu and Lu Li. The few of you have been trapped by my beast taming school's 5 mountain broken veins great array. No matter how big your means are, don't even think about escaping. Zen Master Guru is a dead end, but my beast taming school is merciful. You two are accomplices. If you immediately surrender and hand over the spirit hounds, I can spare your lives. The cat-eared girl tried to make her imposing manner appear majestic and awe-inspiring, however, that sharp childish voice made her words seem somewhat ridiculous. Of course, under the peak-level magical power fluctuation of King Pill, only a few people could laugh out loud. However, as a professional adventurer, Wang Lu was most disgusted by this kind of unskilled threat. Inwardly, he was sick of it, so he retorted sarcastically, "Cat girl, if you change into a maid costume and serve us tea, we can spare your life. Otherwise, my martial uncle Zen Master Guru will definitely catch you and cook you as a side dish to go with the wine." Presumptuous. The cat-eared girl issued a sharp and ear-piercing roar. Her voice was like a tide, causing the sky to shake and the earth to shake. It was as if an invisible blade wind blew in the air, causing the surrounding rocks to rustle and the trees to fall one after another. And this was just the aftermath. The main power of the scream was concentrated on Xiaoqi. Although the one who provoked her was Wang Lu, how could she put a middle-level foundation establishment cultivator in her eyes? She had been cultivating for 300 years, transforming her spirit beast body into a human, using the secret method of beast taming school to wash away her demonic energy and turn it into a righteous magical power. Now, King Pill was at the peak level, Yuanying was just around the corner. Foundation establishment cultivators were like ants to her. Only the unfathomable Zen Master Guru was a bit of a threat to her. This scream was the full power of Taoist King Pill. Wang Lu, who was standing next to Xiaoqi, was only affected by the aftermath. He also felt that his non-phase sword defense was showing signs of collapse. His whole body's magical power surged along with the sound waves, somewhat out of control. Even his non-phase sword bone was shaken and cracked. Fortunately, the defensive and life-saving ability of non-phase method was really heaven-defying. His primordial spirit, which was condensed into an intangible body, was protected by both his physical body and magical power, so it was barely not injured and could still maintain the operation of non-phase method. As for Senior 7th Madam, who was in the main battlefield, Humph. Accompanied by a cold humph, this finely dressed woman took 3 steps back and made a series of hand seals. Dozens of spells condensed and then broke in front of her, as if blooming gorgeous fireworks. Just as Wang Lu was curious about what kind of trick she was playing, he saw Senior 7th Madam's complexion finally changed, and then, she spurted out a big mouthful of blood. Was this the blood shadow divine skill, spraying blood to injure the enemy? However, looking at her pale face, it was obvious that her injury was not light. Wang Lu had to admit the tragic reality. Zen Master Guru, your F*** deceiving me. Just now, you shamelessly boasted that a mere Peak King pill cultivator was nothing to worry about, but in the blink of an eye, you spat out geraniums and got seriously injured. Aren't you Master's good friend? How could you be a friend if your strength is so weak? Don't tell me you're the friend who usually hugs Wang Wu's thigh and yells, "Expert, let's be friends." Then, facing Wang Lu's contemptuous, angry, and surprised eyes, 7th Madam struggled to open her mouth to defend herself. A mere Peak King pill cultivator, if my real body was here, how could I let her be so arrogant? Unfortunately, I'm just an incarnation, so my skill is not enough. I don't care if you're the real body or the incarnation, if your skill is not enough, then just obediently kneel down. Don't pretend to be a master and trick your own people. However, seeing that the situation was getting worse, Wang Lu signaled Luli to come closer and reach out to hug him. At the same time, he walked slowly against the whistling sound and approached Xiaoqi's side, ready to launch the heavenly talisman to take her away from danger. It doesn't matter. I can't beat her, but if I want to run, she can't stop me. With that, a golden light shone from Xiaoqi's hand, and a thick and powerful Buddhist staff appeared in his hand. Xiaoqi slammed the Buddhist staff on the ground and shouted, "All living beings are equal." Suddenly, the mountains were shaken. The mountain barrier that was forcibly pulled up by the 5 mountain broken veins technique was forcibly pressed down in front of this all living beings equal spell. The originally unbreakable cage suddenly disintegrated. The cat-eared girl was taken aback. She didn't expect that the impregnable array would be so easily destroyed. However, she soon realized the problem. It was the Buddhist staff in the hands of Zen Master Guru. The essence was restrained, the magical power was self-generated, and the power was agile, just like a living creature. This was a spiritual treasure, without a doubt, a middle-rank spiritual treasure. For ordinary sects, a low-rank spiritual treasure was enough to make king pill cultivators fight until their heads bled. As a high-rank sect, the beast-taming school situation was naturally much better. Generally, high-rank king pill cultivators mostly had spiritual treasures on them. However, this cat-eared girl was, after all, a spiritual beast in human form. She consumed too much energy when she transformed. She only had 2 life-bound magical treasures in her hands. She was still far from a spiritual treasure, let alone a middle-rank spiritual treasure. No wonder she was able to escape so easily after stealing the spiritual dog last time. It turned out that she had such a good treasure. The cat-eared girl's eyes became hot. 2 sharp teeth protruded from the corners of her lips, and her pupils contracted, revealing her hunter's instinct. Unfortunately, it was still a bit too late. As soon as Xiaoqi's Buddhist staff came out, the 5 mountain broken veins technique was broken. In the next moment, she shouted, "Please open the door of convenience." Thus, a half-real, half-illusory door expanded from the tip of the Buddhist staff. Xiaoqi held the staff in his right hand, and his left hand pulled Wang Lu and took a step forward. Although it was just one step, it just crossed the door of convenience. The next moment, they were already outside the Grand Cloud Mountain. After escaping from the predicament of the Grand Cloud Mountain, before Xiaoqi's feet landed on the ground, she looked back and saw Wang Lu holding the sword of Mount Kun in one hand, Luli in the other, and a smart modeled dog hanging on his leg. This group of people really ran away. Thus, Xiaoqi's heart calmed down. She directly lay down on the ground, gasping for breath. Just now, she had to take the cat-eared girl's scream, so her internal injury was not light. However, her cultivation method was quite mysterious, so she quickly calmed down the disordered magical power in her body. The Buddhist staff in her right hand also emitted a faint light, helping her to heal her injury. Hee, what do you think? Thrilling and exciting, right? Your method of changing the topic to avoid embarrassment is really poor. Wang Lu mercilessly exposed her. Ha, just a moment ago, you're still boasting shamelessly, arrogantly looking down on people, but the next moment, you've been seriously injured and have to flee in panic. You're a proper villain template. Xiao Qi's face turned red. Alas, a momentary slip, just a momentary slip. Even a wise man would make a mistake. Let alone if my real body was here, I could kill her with just a finger. Therefore, a momentary carelessness is excusable. The problem is, your real body isn't here. What do you mean by your so-called avatar and real body? Is your real body referring to that Buddhist staff? It was rare for Wang Lu to take the initiative to change the topic, so Xiao Qi immediately explained, of course not, the so-called real body. Hey, didn't you teach it in Lingjian school? Among the several ways to advance from Yuanying to deity stage, one of them is to refine the avatar, divide the primordial spirit, and wait for the avatar to advance to Yuanying, and then combine the avatar into one, breaking through the barrier in one fell swoop. Wang Lu said, I've taught it, but I really can't associate your appearance with a peak Yuanying stage expert. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.